Chapter 1533. At the venerable level, there were actually no weaklings. After all, who didn't cultivate step by step? The venerables of the Inyang heaven, who were Han Fei's enemies, had all been killed. Only the Thousand-Star City venerables couldn't be destroyed. As for the aristocratic families, Han Fei couldn't touch them yet. Before coming here, when Han Fei met Old Han and Li Daxian in the Level 3 fishery, they made a bet on where he would go. Among them, one of the options was the Waterwood Heaven. Han Fei did want to go to the Waterwood Heaven. After all, there were still many venerables on the 4 battlefields of the Waterwood Heaven. If he really wanted to go there, with his current strength, he could definitely kill a few venerables. Maybe he could even steal the Ice God Gorge. However, compared with the Waterwood Heaven, the Wall of Death was a brand new place and an extremely dangerous place. Han Fei felt that the danger must be relative. For example, when looking for the entrance to the Wall of Death, if he happened to find the area occupied by the Black Blood City, or the area occupied by the Forest of Horrors, the degree of danger would be high. Of course, before coming in, Han Fei didn't know the distribution of forces inside. At most, Han Fei knew that an island flew out from inside, and there were demonic beasts on the island. That was all. At this moment, Han Fei wasn't worried. The most likely threat to Han Fei was the False King. If he didn't have the Gemini Divine Technique, he wouldn't be able to escape if he accidentally encountered a False King. But he had forged the universe. What was there to be afraid of? In the outside world, if he failed the King's tribulation, he might die directly. However, if he failed the King's tribulation here, for some reason, many people didn't die. He became the so-called False King. At this moment, Han Fei had a purpose to fight as soon as he arrived. Most importantly, Han Fei had to repair the damage to his soul. After all, if he wanted to make a breakthrough, his soul must be full. Otherwise, if his soul was damaged at the peak elementary level, it was likely to affect his foundation when he was in the intermediate venerable realm. Life and Death Gorge. When Han Fei really stood on this super gorge, he knew how big this so-called Life and Death Gorge was. Ma Yuhan said, "Bull Demon King, the distance of the wall of the cage is the width of the Life and Death Gorge. Its length was also close to 200,000 kilometers. You need to know that once you enter the gorge to fight, your life and death will depend on yourself. For tens of thousands of years, we in Black Blood City have our own rules. That is, those who participate in the battle, unless they escape on their own, are not allowed to help." Ma Yuhan had just finished speaking when he heard the White Marten say, "Little brother Nyo, besides individual battles, you can also have group battles in the Life and Death Gorge. Do you want me to go with you?" Nyo Dali also said, "That's right. 100,000 kilometers wide. Such a large place is enough for 10-odd venerates to fight at the same time." Ma Yuhan said, "For the first battle, you can choose to fight one-on-one. I trust you. If it's a group battle, I don't recommend it. It requires careful consideration." Everyone looked at Han Fei. However, Han Fei's lips curled slightly. "Everyone, let me fight 2 matches alone first. Everyone." Be it the Demon Beast Alliance or Black Blood City, there were quite a few explorer-level powerhouses. Generally speaking, the Life and Death Gorge was for them to fight. Such repeated training was an important reason why the Demon Beast Alliance and Black Blood City could produce so many venerate. As the most important war zone, the Life and Death Gorge usually had more than 50 venerates stationed here, in case a super war broke out suddenly. Such a super war had happened several times. Once, because of a riot in the Forest of Horrors, both sides sent out 100 venerates and fought fiercely. At that time, the number of people stationed in the Life and Death Gorge was less than 50. As a result, they were ambushed by more than 200 venerates, and 13 of them died on the spot, shaking the cage. 80% of the explorer-level demonic beasts didn't escape. Since that war, the Demon Beast Alliance had made a rule. No matter what, the number of venerates in the life and death gorge must not be less than 50. No matter what happened, they had to ensure it. On the Beast Island, 100 venerates had to be stationed every day. At this moment, there were more than 80,000 explorer demonic beasts cultivating in the life and death gorge. Among the 80,000 explorers, 326 were demigods. In theory, they had all reached the demigod level, so the probability of them reaching the venerable level was not small. And these demigods were the regular visitors of the life and death gorge. Would they die? Or enter the venerable level? Both sides were fighting. The Demon-Beast Alliance was like this, and so was Blackblood City. The other side had even more demigods than the Demon-Beast Alliance. At this moment, Han Fei stood on a towering mountain, looking at the Ice God Gorge. Just 20,000 kilometers away, a great battle broke out. Beside Han Fei, there were more than a dozen venerates watching the battle. Although there were many venerates on the life and death gorge, it was still 200,000 kilometers away. Therefore, there were still many venerates patrolling the battlefield in the sky above the life and death gorge. The venerates who didn't enter the battlefield couldn't take action, but they had to keep an eye on the battlefield. These spectating venerates were a bit like referees. If the other side played any dirty tricks, they could detect it in time. Besides, they had to prevent the other side from breaking the agreement and suddenly launching a large-scale attack, causing serious damage to their side. There were precedents of this kind of thing in Blackblood City. At this moment, someone was watching the battle in the void. Suddenly, he saw a figure stepping through the void and coming over. It was none other than Ma Yuhan, who personally brought Han Fei here to challenge him. This was the convention. With a big shot here, he had to be tough. The two flew about 100,000 kilometers toward the life and death gorge. There was a mine here, and the mountain was quite high. In Han Fei's perception, there were at least 10 venerates from the Demon-Beast Alliance or Blackblood City squatting here. Ma Yuhan looked at Han Fei. This is called the Battle Cliff. If there's anything, just shout here. The venerates of the Demon-Beast Alliance were stunned when they saw Ma Yuhan coming in person. But then they saw Han Fei and immediately realized that this was probably the Bull Demon King. At this time, Han Fei didn't transform perfectly, but let 2 horns grow out of his head. The reason why Han Fei did this was mainly to confuse the opponent. Otherwise, the sea demons would definitely be vigilant when they saw a demon beast that looked exactly like a human. Han Fei's thoughtfulness was immediately praised by Niu Dali. A cow with horns looks like a bull. Han Fei was speechless. I'm just confusing the opponent, understand? Seeing Han Fei coming, many venerates seemed to realize something and took a deep breath. The battle between the venerates was about to begin. Han Fei took a step forward and yelled loudly, "Stinky fishes and shrimps of Blackblood City, all of you listen up to this bull. I'm the Bull Demon King of the Water Buffalo Clan. Today, I'm here to challenge you. Stinky sea demons, who dares to come here and fight me to the death?" After Han Fei shouted, in the life and death gorge, those who were still fighting fiercely stopped fighting and began to evacuate. Those who could challenge in a place like the life and death gorge were all venerate. It had been almost 3 years since a battle between venerates broke out in the life and death gorge. Who would have thought that the Beast Alliance would be the first to challenge them? However, many sea demons were puzzled. Weren't there only Niu Dali, Niu Kursin, and Niu Pan in the Water Buffalo Clan? Why did a Bull Demon King suddenly pop up? Hum, in an instant the void shook. Around them, sea demon venerates appeared one after another. The explorers quickly withdrew, and the venerates came one after another. A shrimp soldier pointed a spear at Han Fei. Bull Demon King? Since when did the water buffaloes have a bull? Han Fei sneered. You stinky shrimp, who are you pointing at? Is your Grandpa Niu someone you can casually order around? The shrimp soldier's eyes turned cold. Humph. Be careful, or I'll tear your mouth apart. Moo. Han Fei turned into a water buffalo, and his low moo shook the void. Han Fei stepped on the void, and white smoke billowed from his nostrils. So what? You stinky shrimp, come down and fight me one-on-one if you dare. I'll break your shrimp bones off and pick my teeth. Han Fei didn't hide his strength as a peak-level junior venerable. Because he was the one who invited Han Fei, his opponents were naturally at the same level as Han Fei. The moment the shrimp soldier came down and talked to Han Fei, he had already fallen into Han Fei's trap. In terms of swearing? How could these poor sea demons be a match for Han Fei? Well, to be precise, this was their daily life. Since Han Fei lived in the Age of Doom, swearing had become a necessary skill for him. Seeing that the shrimp soldier was furious, Han Fei continued to shout, "Little shrimp, do you dare to fight me? If not, kneel on the ground and call me Grandpa. Grandpa, I've eaten shrimps before. And more than one. Little shrimp, why don't you speak? Are you deaf? Oh no. You're a shrimp. You must be blind." While Han Fei was shouting, many venerables of the Demon Beast Alliance looked at each other in bewilderment. This Bull Demon King has just come to the 10,000 Beast Island. How can he be so arrogant? Fat 7 also said leisurely, "If I were Shrimp Wensi, I wouldn't be able to stand it." Ma Qilin sighed. "Brother Nyo, you're very eloquent. If I had such eloquence, I would have won every time I challenged you." Mountain Cat walked next to Ma Qilin with light steps and said disdainfully, "Then challenge me." Ma Qilin was stunned by Mountain Cat's words. Whether it was the Demon Beast Alliance or Black Blood City, everyone knew that if they dared to challenge, they dared to fight. Usually, both sides would send out the strongest ones in the same realm. Han Fei's challenge was being guessed by the sea demons of Black Blood City. Someone said, "This man is indeed from the Water Buffalo clan. His aura and realm can't lie. The Water Buffalo clan has a strong physique and can attack the soul. However, this man has never shown up, so I don't know what his Tao is. Once see, he probably came out to break through to the junior peak level venerable. Are you sure you can defeat him?" The shrimp soldier had been cursed for a long time and couldn't find a way out. In any case, he was also a junior peak level venerable. "Your physique is strong, but my attack is strong. Why should I be afraid of you? Fight." While Han Fei was cursing, the shrimp soldier suddenly stepped forward. "The only bull of the Water Buffalo clan. Humph. From today on, the Water Buffalo clan will only have female members. First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter." Chapter 1534. One-on-one battles and group battles were certainly different. In this life and death gorge, the two of them could choose a random place to fight and decide the winner. During this period, no one else could intervene. In fact, the confrontation between the demonic beasts and the sea demons had been going on for a long time, in order to show their strength and encourage their explorers to cultivate. When Han Fei and Shrimp Soldier decided to fight, the commanders of both sides shouted, "Open the array!" Han Fei was stunned for a moment and thought, "What array?" Nyo Dali transmitted his voice. "During the battle between the venerables, because the power is too great, in order to prevent accidents, we need to seal the life and death gorge and the back. Once the life and death gorge is sealed, if you want to retreat from the battlefield, you must return to 20,000 kilometers from our position." Han Fei smiled. "Admit defeat? That's impossible. What if you can't return 20,000 kilometers?" Nyo Dali nodded. "Then you have to keep fighting. It's not a glorious thing to admit defeat. So, if you don't even have time to admit defeat, it means that the gap between the two sides is too big. The challenger's life or death is not so important." After Nyo Dali said that, Ma Yuhun said, "There is another purpose of sealing the battlefield. Your venerable battle will be watched by hundreds of thousands of people, and the explorers on both sides can learn from it." Han Fei's eyelids twitched. "Really?" The white mink said, "What do you think? In the venerable battle, you must use all your strength. Your image represents the image of the 10,000 Beast Island. Most of the time, the two sides are at the same level, and in the end, no one can defeat the other. This will lead to a lose-lose and a draw. In this way, the reputation of both sides can be taken care of. Ma Yuhun said, Bull Demon King, my only request for you in this battle is not to admit defeat. That shrimp Wensi is very strong. He is an ancient mutant with the bloodline of Anomalocaris. His attack skills are amazing. Don't underestimate him. Han Fei nodded and stepped into the void, standing in the life and death gorge that was in a mess and full of rubble. After all, there were battles here all year round, and there couldn't be any buildings here. Many mineral veins had already been destroyed by the fighting between the two sides. In the life and death gorge, the explorers had basically retreated. At this moment, the life and death gorge had already been sealed. These explorers could only see a large patch of smoke. And in the smoke, there was a picture, which was the confrontation between Han Fei and Shrimp Wensi. In fact, Han Fei's demon purification pot rarely displayed information when it was faced with highly intelligent creatures, especially human-shaped ones. Since Shui Wensi claimed to have the bloodline of an ancient mutated species, his strength shouldn't be weak. However, how could Han Fei allow them to show off? Han Fei's heart thumped, and the invincible will condensed from his body. A giant golden bull shadow enshrouded Han Fei. On the Monster Beast Alliance's side, many people looked at Niu Dali. Someone said, Dali, this Bull Demon King sorcery is very different from yours. Someone praised, this technique looks quite extraordinary. It shouldn't be weak. Niu Dali was also stunned. Han Fei had never used this combat skill on the Beast Island. It seemed that this was his special skill. Niu Dali said, Everyone, don't worry. The Bull Demon King will only be stronger than me, not weaker. The white ferret couldn't help tilting his head and glancing at Niu Dali. You mean they are in the same realm? Niu Dali nodded. I'm talking about the cross realm. All the beasts. Ma Yuhun's eyes instantly lit up. No wonder the Bull Demon King wanted to fight as soon as he arrived. So, he wanted to trick the demons. However, could he defeat Niu Dali? The talent and strength of this Bull Demon King was probably much more powerful than they had imagined. In the field, Han Fei's invincible will condensed into a giant buffalo shadow. Han Fei sprinted in the air like a crazy bull. As Han Fei stretched out his hand, water droplets condensed in the air. What was it if not infinity water? However, what the infinity water condensed at this moment was not in the shape of a water droplet, but in the shape of a harpoon, a bit like a sea demon's weapon. But upon a closer look, it was more like an ordinary fork. Mu Han Fei roared, and his voice contained the power of soul attack. His roar shook the life and death gorge, and the running ghosts panicked. Han Fei's speed was getting faster and faster, and in the blink of an eye, he rushed into a golden beam of light, which looked extremely domineering. Seeing this, Shrimp Wensi already knew that Han Fei was extraordinary. However, how could she Wensi, be an ordinary shrimp? Shrimp Wensi arched his body, and 100-meter-long phantom appeared. Suddenly, a weird shrimp with an octopus head and a scorpion body appeared. Shrimp Wensi's two arched tentacles, which looked like octopus tentacles, turned into two star-shaped wheels with a swish. As soon as the wheels appeared, they were covered in glittering starlight and rushed at Han Fei like two big wheels. The speed was so fast that in the blink of an eye, they spun hundreds of thousands of times as if they were going to cut Han Fei to death. On the sea demon's side, someone laughed and said, The water buffaloes are nothing more than boorish men. No matter how strong his impact is, how can he resist Wensi's sharp teeth that can compete with ultra-quality divine weapons? On the Demon Beast Alliance's side, many people frowned. Fatty 7 shuddered. Although Brother Niu's strength is extraordinary, isn't he underestimating Prawn Wensi? Is he going to resist Shrimp Wensi's sharp teeth wheel with his body? Niu Dali wasn't too worried, because he already knew that Han Fei had an indestructible golden body. The Venerables were quite calm, but the explorers were dumbfounded. Someone exclaimed. Is the new venerable of the water buffaloes so direct and violent? Is he charging like a bull? Can't he play some tricks? Someone said, Don't worry. The water buffaloes have unparalleled big horns. They are certainly not afraid of Shrimp Onesi's sharp teeth wheel. The distance between the two sides was getting closer and closer. Han Fei was still in the air, and Shrimp Onesi had already turned into a human form, wearing a shiny crimson armor. His body shook, and 18 pairs of deformed blades floated out of his back, turned into light, and charged at Han Fei again. In Shrimp Onesi's hand there was a long spear. He didn't believe that no matter how strong Han Fei's physique was, could he resist his sharp teeth wheel and 36 sharp blades head-on? Chilla! Han Fei was about to collide with the sharp teeth wheel. Han Fei suddenly stretched out his left hand and waved it casually in the air, and a flash of silver light illuminated the sky and the earth. And at the moment this silver light appeared, Han Fei stepped on the ground, and the lines of Taoist patterns instantly condensed into a coiled turtle array. Clank, clank, clang bam, in the life and death gorge, a circle of golden ripples spread out at an incredible speed. Outside the life and death gorge, a demon pointed at the figure on the mist and said, Look, the bull demon king rushed over and knocked away the sharp teeth wheel. Someone sucked in a breath of cold air. He only used his body to break through the sharp teeth wheel? Someone sighed. Is he crazy? In the venerable realm, Ma Qilin was excited. Brother Nyo is amazing. He can resist the sharp teeth wheel with his body alone. I'm afraid his physique is not ordinary. However, the next moment Bobcat said, but his golden phantom was shattered. Just now, he used an array. Let's see how he can block the 36 sharp blades behind. Knock on the heavenly gate. However, as soon as Bobcat said that, Han Fei pierced the void with his spear and stabbed at Jiao Wensi from more than 500 kilometers away. Greenwood wondered, how much power will he consume from such a long distance? Many people exclaimed, he's fighting from so far away? Jiao Wensi sneered. Do you think you're a peak level venerable? You're so far away. Even if I stand still, what can you do to me? However, in the next second, everyone's face froze. The 500-kilometer void suddenly shortened. Jiao Wensi appeared directly 5 kilometers away from Han Fei. Not good, the great Tao of space. A sea demon shouted, Wensi, attack with all your strength. Ma Yuhan's eyes lit up. Good, the great Tao of space. The Bull Demon King is indeed extraordinary. Nyo Dali was excited. Han Fei didn't show this great Tao of space before. What Han Fei showed before was gravity, right? Is he walking on two paths at the same time? Puff! Jiao Wensi originally wanted to see how this Bull Demon King could block his 36 sharp blade. However, the distance was shortened in an instant, and he didn't even have a chance to run. His body was directly penetrated. Whoop! Not only was his body penetrated, but Han Fei's blow was so terrifying that it directly poked a hole in the void. In an instant, thousands of space cracks appeared, and Jiao Wensi was covered with cuts and bruises. In a hurry, with a thought from Jiao Wensi, the 36 sharp blades returned to his body, like 36 rays of light. However, when he did this, he saw a smile appear at the corner of Han Fei's mouth. At the next moment, Jiao Wensi's face suddenly changed. He felt that his soul was caught by something. Something was trying to drill into his soul. Moo! At this moment, hundreds of beasts devoured his soul, and the terrifying roar of a bull appeared directly in Jiao Wensi's mind. BM, BM, BM in everyone's eyes, Jiao Wensi spurted blood from his 7 orifices. He was actually attacked by Han Fei's soul technique. Go to hell! Under the horrified gaze of hundreds of thousands of people, Han Fei punched down and directly blasted Jiao Wensi's body into pieces. At this moment, maybe Jiao Wensi was not dead, but his soul had been controlled by Han Fei. Han Fei opened his mouth and gently spat. Explode. Rumble, a huge mushroom cloud rose straight to the entire life and death gorge. Gotcha! In the sky, a red crack exploded like thunder, crisscrossing the void. At that moment, a rain of blood fell, and a venerable died. This battle lasted less than 30 breaths of time. A junior peak-level venerable died just like that. Most of the time, Han Fei was running wildly. At this moment, the audience was dumbfounded, and countless people gasped. Fat 7 took a breath. *T, Ma Qilin was dumbfounded. This Jiao Wensi is dead? Niu Dali swallowed. Looking at the proud figure in the rolling waves, her heart couldn't help pounding. Outside the life and death gorge, Niu Kursin and Niu Panpan looked at each other in shock. Niu Panpan's body trembled. Is a bull so powerful? Second update. Please vote. End of this chapter. Chapter 1535. Moo. In the field, the bull demon king roared. The venerables of Black Blood City are a mess. How dare they come out and fight me, the bull demon king? I'd like to ask, is there only such trash in Black Blood City? Han Fei stood proudly in the middle of the battlefield, looking heroic and heroic. He breathed out clouds of smoke from his mouth, and pointed in the direction of the venerables of Black Blood City with a fierce expression. In fact, not only the Demon Beast Alliance was shocked by Han Fei. The Black Blood City side was also shocked. How strong was Shi Wensi? Everyone was clear about this. He was definitely among the top of the junior venerables. Few people in the Demon Beast Alliance or Black Blood City could beat him. But even such a prodigy was slain in a mere 30 breaths. He did not even have the chance to escape. From the moment Han Fei used the world's end near at hand, to the moment Shrimp Wensi was pierced, to the moment his soul was captured and the hundreds of beasts devoured his soul. During this period, Han Fei's movements were so smooth that he didn't give Shrimp Wensi any chance to escape. On the Black Blood City side, countless venerables stood outside the life and death gorge with solemn faces. At the same time, they were all furious. Someone guessed, this bull demon king may be a hidden heavenly talent of the Demon Beast Alliance. He only showed up when he reached the venerable realm. It must be because his path is too difficult and he is stuck at the peak of the junior venerable realm. Someone else nodded. This person can kill Shi Wensi in 30 seconds. He is definitely not an ordinary person. His physique, divine soul, combat skills, and divine soul attack skills are almost flawless. I'm afraid he has reached the peak of the junior venerable realm. Although the sea demons were shocked by Shi Wensi's death, it didn't seem to be the first time. Therefore, they didn't have any intention of rioting or breaking the rules. Instead, they were all looking for excuses. Although what they said might be right, in the ears of the demon beasts, it sounded more like an excuse for their defeat. Ma Yuhan showed a faint smile and immediately looked back. Lei Xiao returned to the Beast Island to report the good news. Yes. Gotcha. A black panther suddenly turned into a bolt of lightning, and its entire body was already sprinting out. In fact, the purpose of reporting the good news wasn't just to inform them. It was also to boost the morale of the troops in the rear. Slaughtering a venerable, no matter where it was a big deal. How difficult was it to become a venerable? Naturally, venerable ones like them knew about it. In this cage, everyone was fighting for the sake of becoming an exalt. Even so, many people were unable to reach the threshold of the venerable realm until their death. But now, what did they see? In the hands of the Bull Demon King, the Sea Demon Venerable of Black Blood City couldn't even last 30 breaths. Han Fei looked back at the life and death gorge with a creepy smile. Seeing that creepy smile, Niu Dali suddenly felt that something was wrong. Today, when Han Fei just came out of seclusion, he showed this expression. Han Fei abruptly turned his head around. Stinky fishes and shrimps of Black Blood City. Has my unparalleled bravery struck fear into your hearts? Is there anyone in the primary venerable realm who dares to challenge me? If there aren't any, I can fight a mid-level exalted expert. Is he crazy? Even the white ferret couldn't help but put away her carelessness. She couldn't help but look at Nyo Dali and ask, Xiaoli, can this guy really surpass realms? Greenwood said, Dali, this is not a child's play. Don't brag just because he's from the Water Buffalo clan. Nyo Dali didn't know how to answer. She said, Bulsh *t, why would I lie to you? I really can't beat him. The venerables all gasped slightly. Nyo Dali couldn't beat the Bull Demon King? Nyo Dali was a peak-level mid-level venerable. If he fully exerted his strength, his power would be extremely terrifying. He had fought in the Life and Death Gorge for more than 30 times, but no one could kill him with his physique and strength. On the side of the sea demons, he's going too far. He wants to surpass realms to fight? Does he know what he's doing? I'll do it. I'll blow him up. Damn, this bull must be killed by my knife. Get out of the way, I'll do it. When Ci is my best friend, and I'm only half a step away from the peak-level mid-level venerable. If necessary, I can make a breakthrough by force. I must kill this bull today. Immediately, both the Demon Beast Alliance and Black Blood City were in an uproar. Han Fei was too arrogant. A venerable was not a hidden fisher or a law enforcer. How could he surpass realms just because he wanted to? However, the mermaid leader of Black Blood City said, Crab Qianlong, don't underestimate the enemy. This man is indeed a peak-level junior venerable. Since he dares to challenge a mid-level venerable, it means that his strength has been accumulated to a certain extent. I'm sure that he can fight a mid-level venerable. The big red crab was shaped like a centaur, with half of its body combined with the crab's body. Its upper body had a pair of crab pincers and 2 weird claws that looked like chains. The tail of the chain was attached to the leader's giant axe. At this moment it roared, although the Space Dao is powerful, it's not invincible. My soul-lock Dao is not afraid of any Dao. Hey! Han Fei was about to continue shouting, when he saw an ugly big crab suddenly drilling out of the void. In Han Fei's eyes, the pincers were like a hammer, a pair of scissors, and 2 big axes at the end of the chain. It seemed that its whole body was a weapon. Han Fei sneered. Sure enough, as long as I fight beyond realms, these people will jump out voluntarily. In this battle, Han Fei couldn't attack as aggressively as he did just now. In the battle just now, he only absorbed a little more than 900 points of soul power. He would have to kill 3 more people of the same level to repair his damaged soul. Therefore, even if he killed this crab, he still couldn't repair his damaged soul. Therefore, this battle must be difficult. Only by being difficult could he trigger the next battle and give the opponent some hope. Only by triggering the next battle could he completely repair his soul. Han Fei's invincible will turned into a golden bull shadow again, wrapping him in it. Han Fei pointed at the crab and shouted, I've eaten countless crabs in my life, and I'm known as a crab maniac. People like you only deserve to be a delicacy on my plate. Outside the Life and Death Gorge, Ma Qilin said enviously, I don't know if Brother Nyo is telling the truth or not. Look at your eloquence. You must be a cultured bull. Nyo Dali was reacquainted with Han Fei. When fighting with his own people, the Bull Demon King was always modest. However, when fighting with the enemy, the Bull Demon King was domineering and arrogant. At this moment, Nyo Dali began to wonder about the gender of the water buffaloes. Is this the aggressiveness that only bulls have? Hearing Han Fei's dirty words, the venerables all felt that he was going to win, so they all relaxed. Crab Qianlong roared, You're courting death. Take my dragon-slaying axes. Swish, swish, the 2 chains on Crab Qianlong's body wriggled out, and the chains seemed to be attracting the power of the void. Like 2 black dragons, the axes above their heads roared up. The 2 axes crossed and slashed at Han Fei. Huh? A locking technique? Han Fei immediately noticed that something was wrong. The double dragon giant axes seemed to have locked onto his soul. Han Fei immediately realized that this move not only hurt the body but also killed the soul. It was definitely not an ordinary combat skill. The venerables of the Demon-Beast Alliance all looked solemn. Han Fei raised his left hand, and a hair-like visible power appeared in the void. Wow! Chaotic Chi, this Bull Demon King is going to use chaotic Chi? A sea demon shouted, Crab Qianlong, don't be reluctant to use the chaotic Chi. Use it. When Ma Yuhun and the others saw Han Fei use the chaotic Chi, they all frowned. Although the chaotic Chi was used as a trump card, it was the first chaotic Chi that a person obtained after becoming a venerable. However, the first chaotic Chi that a person obtained after becoming a venerable could only be 3 wisps at most. Ordinary people could only get 2 wisps. In the future, if they wanted to obtain more chaotic Chi, they needed to constantly improve their understanding of spiritual energy and the Great Tao. Usually, many people couldn't condense the first wisp of chaotic Chi in the world alone when they were in the beginner venerable realm. Even for mid-level venerables, it was very difficult. The ability to condense chaotic Chi was usually mastered by the advanced venerables and the peak-level venerables. The main reason was that when they reached the advanced and peak level, they were already extremely strong. Every step of improvement required a lot of thinking. In order to reach the peak level, cultivators had to improve their ability to disassemble spiritual energy and improve their understanding of the Great Tao. And this problem could be ignored in the beginner and middle-level venerables. Therefore, the growth speed of these 2 realms was relatively fast. At this moment, as soon as Han Fei used the chaotic Chi, Crab Qianlong almost cursed. How could this guy use such precious power so easily? It seemed that this Bull Demon King was indeed stuck in the bottleneck of the beginner venerable realm. Once he won again and again, this person would definitely have a chance to make a breakthrough. With this in mind, Crab Qianlong gritted his teeth, and a wisp of chaotic Chi appeared in front of him. Immediately afterward, the chaotic Chi dispersed and was swallowed into his body. This was the first time that Han Fei had used chaotic Chi. When this power completely dissipated in his body, Han Fei suddenly felt that his flesh and blood all over his body suddenly expanded. Every inch of his muscles seemed to be full of power, as if he had been injected with stimulant. Moo! Han Fei let out a low roar and suddenly plunged down like an ox. He shook his fists, and a huge vortex appeared behind him. On his fists, golden light and red light were shining. Bam! Bam! In the next moment 2 sky-reaching fist marks broke through the void and blasted at Crab Qianlong. However, the sacrificing fist marks were not aimed at the opponent's black dragon axe, but at Crab Qianlong. It was the first time that Han Fei had used the sacrificing fist marks with both hands at the same time. He didn't expect it to be so easy. Even though the 2 sacrificing fist marks were blasted out, Han Fei still felt that he had the power to defeat the opponent. At this moment, neither Han Fei nor Crab Qianlong dodged. After all, both of them were using lock-on technique. So, it all depended on which one was tougher? Third. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1536. What did it feel like to use the chaotic gas? Han Fei felt that it was as pleasant as smoking an opium pipe, as if he had turned on the nitrogen engine in a racing car, and as satisfying as his soul. All in all, when Han Fei punched out, he felt that more power was about to burst out of his body. Berserk. It felt like a berserk combat technique, similar to Lu Renquang's violent war body, and also like the mad bloodworms. Looking at the 2 giant dragons that were bombarding him, Han Fei smiled and suddenly punched out a series of golden fist marks. This scene was like countless shooting stars streaking across the night sky. Han Fei found that when he used a wisp of chaotic gas, his energy was inexhaustible. As long as he wanted to, his body and soul could be united as soon as the energy left his body. In addition, Han Fei also had a weird feeling. When he used the chaotic gas, it seemed that the chaotic gas could absorb the spiritual energy contained in his body. Therefore, when the chaotic gas took effect, the spiritual energy was also consumed. The power in the spiritual energy was also being absorbed by the chaotic gas. At this moment, Han Fei understood why he had to understand the chaotic gas first if he wanted to absorb it. As a matter of fact, the primal chaos chi was extracted from spiritual energy. Just like the feeling when he just became a venerable, when the spiritual energy was transformed into the chaotic gas. After the transformation, the part of the spiritual energy lost its power and naturally passed away. Boom, boom, boom. There was not much time left for Han Fei to think. While he was thinking, the opponent's black dragon axe had already slashed at him. It crushed hundreds of invincible fist marks along the way, but when it reached Han Fei, it was already exhausted. However, although it was exhausted, its power was not small. Han Fei had a chance to crush the two axes. However, Han Fei gave up on it. He let the two dragon axes hit him, let the axe light envelop him, and sent his body flying 100 kilometers in the sea. Compared to Han Fei's acting, Crab Qianlong was also shocked. One of his pincers was going to raise the hammer, and the other was looking for an opportunity to clamp Han Fei to death. However, Crab Qianlong discovered that Han Fei's two fist marks were getting stronger and stronger in the air, and were as powerful as his dragon axe. Dong dong dong. The giant hammer also hammered repeatedly in the void. In the end, after hundreds of hammer strikes were dispersed, Qianlong smashed the two hammers in his hands with all his might. Only then did he barely manage to disperse the power of the sacrificial punch. However, he was also sent flying dozens of miles away by the recoil. The speed at which everything happened was just too fast. Therefore, Xie Qianlong wasn't surprised that Han Fei was blown back hundreds of kilometers. After all, he was a level higher than the Bull Demon King. Moreover, he could also use the chaotic energy. If I can't even suppress him with this, how can I be considered a peak middle-level venerable? Bull Demon King, Brother Nyo, Ma Qilin and Fatty 7 yelled at the same time with nervous expressions on their faces. Fatty 7 said, "Hey, why aren't you guys nervous? It's obvious that there's still a gap between Brother Ox and Qianlong." Ma Qilin also said, "Father, do we have to remind Brother Ox? It's too risky to fight someone of a higher level." However, at this moment, the White Ferret said casually, "Two idiots." Ma Qilin. Fatty 7. The White Ferret said, "Didn't you see that Xiaoli wasn't panicked? Xiaoli said just now that the Bull Demon King is stronger than her. How can he be defeated by Qianlong in terms of strength or attack?" Ma Qilin exclaimed, "Are you saying that Brother Ox did it on purpose?" Fatty 7 was also dumbfounded. On purpose? Why did he give in to his opponent? At this moment, the Bobcat said, "Have you forgotten? What did the Bull Demon King say before he joined the battle? He said he would kill a few of them first. This guy has a big appetite. This is only the second one. He obviously doesn't want to stop now. If he crushes Qianlong again, do you want him to fight an advanced venerable?" Ma Yuhan smiled. "Yes, this Bull Demon King is brave and smart. However, I wonder how he will fight in the next battle." Ma Qilin was stunned. "No, Dad. Do you mean that Brother Ox will definitely win this battle?" Ma Yuhan glanced at his son and said leisurely, "You have to think carefully to observe the battle. Sometimes, in addition to the battle itself, you also have to consider the human heart." Of course, the White Ferret and the others could tell that because Nyo Dali said that Han Fei was stronger than her. Nyo Dali certainly wouldn't lie to them. So, what they saw now could only be that Han Fei was lying to them. Sure enough, when Han Fei drew a long ravine on the bottom of the sea, he was bleeding from all his orifices. Half of the bull's horn was broken. Many parts of his body began to crack. Moo, with a tap of his foot, Han Fei took a few steps and stood in the void again. He waved his hand, and the bull trident transformed by the infinity water returned. Ho-ho-ho! Han Fei's body suddenly changed into a raging bull more than 30 meters in size. The old turtle in Han Fei's body was dumbfounded to see this scene. He felt that Han Fei was about to let go of himself. By becoming so big, Han Fei was deliberately consuming the chaotic energy. Besides, what's the use of turning into a bull? Do you want to hit it with your head? The problem is that you're AF * king fake bull. However, in the next moment, Han Fei began to dig his hooves. Every time Han Fei dug his hooves, huge waves surged in the water. Han Fei shouted, "The wrath of the god of war, bull's spirit!" Moo! At that moment, the bull trident was broken. Within 100 kilometers, the sea was surging. As Han Fei rushed out, he saw 100 kilometers of sea surging like knives. The knife waves set off a unique undersea wave on the bottom of the sea. This surging wave, almost synchronized with Han Fei, rushed towards the crab Qianlong. On the Demon Beast Alliance's side, countless explorers held their breath. Too strong, this move of the Bull Demon King was too powerful. If they were hit by such a terrifying torrent of knives, they would be torn into pieces in an instant. The crab Qianlong also looked solemn. However, he didn't panic much in his heart. As it turned out, this Bull Demon King was indeed very strong. Given his terrifying physique, he might not be able to resist a blow from the crab Qianlong at all. However, a series of bubbles popped out of the crab Qianlong's mouth. These bubbles rapidly condensed, and like pieces of ice crystals, they sealed themselves within. That was not all. This was just a passive defense. As a peak-level venerable, how could he only passively defend himself in the face of a peak-level beginner venerable? The crab Qianlong adjusted his posture and rushed towards Han Fei. As the crab Qianlong rushed out, the two chains followed him like two long ribbons. However, the ribbons were intertwining rapidly and intertwining like fried dough twists. And the two big axes on the chains dragged seawater and followed behind him. From the outside, this scene looked like the crab Qianlong was running wildly, dragging a super-large water ball countless times larger than his body. Inside the ball, there were also two big axes. On the sea demon's side, someone grinned. The power of the crab Qianlong's great ball axe technique is among the top 10 techniques of our Black Blood City and the Demon Beast Alliance. This Bull Demon King is bound to lose. Someone sneered. Does he think it's an arrogant technique? I'm afraid it only looks powerful. In fact, it's just that the chaotic energy has provided him with too much power and made him overconfident. He doesn't know how he can block the attack of the crab Qianlong when the energy is too scattered. On the Demon Beast Alliance's side, everyone looked confused too. Lynx glanced at Nyo Dali and asked in confusion, "Dali, is he much stronger than you? Are you sure he'll be fine facing such a fierce attack from the crab Qianlong?" Nyo Dali also frowned and said, "He's indeed much stronger than me. It was just that he had never used these combat skills and great arts before, and he doesn't look weak at all." While everyone was discussing animatedly, Han Fei had already collided with the crab Qianlong. The crab Qianlong was instantly entangled by billions of blade lights. Even so, whenever the blade approached, the water-shaped blades would be shattered into pieces. And the big ball behind him rose into the air too. The diameter of the ball had reached 1,000 meters. Han Fei was facing the sky at this moment, with two sledgehammers in his hands. "Dumb, dumb, dumb," Han Fei roared coldly. "Do you think you're the only one who can use hammers?" The shadows of the hammers and the crab Qianlong were bombarding each other crazily. Seeing this, Nyo Dali immediately said, "I know this technique. He used it before. It's very powerful and can completely suppress me." Hardly had Nyo Dali finished speaking when he saw Han Fei being hammered into the ground. Everyone looked at Nyo Dali and then at the battlefield and nodded slightly. It seemed that Han Fei was pretending again. Rumble! A visible ripple spread out for nearly 1,000 kilometers from where the sledgehammers hit. The sea demon's side had already begun to cheer. Someone shouted, "Let him be arrogant? Even a venerable would have been blown into pieces by such a strike." Someone grinned hideously. "This man deserves to die." Someone said casually, "It's only natural that the crab Qianlong can win. Does the Bull Demon King really think it's so easy to fight someone of a higher level? However, the booing became fewer and fewer as time went on, because they saw that the power of the blades didn't stop but grew stronger and stronger. At this moment, the crab Qianlong was still being swept by the infinite blade lights. Suddenly, he saw a red light bombarding the heavenly crystal on the ground. An enormous fist mark blew the crab Qianlong into the sky. In the next moment, a figure appeared above the crab Qianlong. As soon as the crab Qianlong's eyes narrowed, Han Fei found that he was completely confined. The crab Qianlong laughed aloud. "Water buffalo, do you really think you can defeat me? Let's see how you break the eye of confinement." At this moment, Han Fei was enveloped by a green pillar of light and couldn't move at all. However, Han Fei wasn't as panicked as the crab Qianlong thought. He smiled slightly. Explode, the infinity water exploded. Because it didn't enter his body, the crab Qianlong didn't notice it at all. At this moment, it suddenly detonated and shattered his shell. Then, the rest of the infinity water was also shattered at close range. Mu, the 100-beast soul devourer, was activated. Han Fei easily walked out of the void confinement. Han Fei pulled out a knife from the void and slashed at a drop of essence blood in the void. The void lines were all launched. In Forge the Universe, the nautical panorama stopped spinning and the blade lights stopped. In the sky, the red crack reappeared, and a rain of blood poured down. Another venerable died. Chapter 1537. Under everyone's gaze, Han Fei created a miracle. After being hit by the terrifying attack of the crab Qianlong, theoretically, even if he didn't die, he should be reborn from a single drop of blood. However, Han Fei simply punched back. Then, he used some unknown method to kill the crab Qianlong. The problem was that Han Fei stopped the crab Qianlong from being reborn from a single drop of blood, which was the most amazing thing. Seeing this, Ma Yuhan said to someone next to him, "Go back and report the good news." Cough, cough. When Han Fei's body stabilized, everyone found that one of his arms was dangling, and his body was full of cracks. More than half of his battle clothes were torn, revealing his explosive muscles. Besides, Han Fei's aura was very unstable at this moment. After a full 2 or 3 breaths of time, this kind of aura finally stabilized a little. Many people's first reaction was that Han Fei was either crippled or had reached the critical point of a breakthrough. That strike just now seemed like a perfect counterattack in a hopeless situation. What did this mean? It was often a sign of a breakthrough. There were many strong masters on the Life and Death Gorge. Among them, there were several Half-King Realm Masters. On the Demon-Beast Alliance's side, in addition to Ma Yuhan, there were 2 other Half-King Realm Masters on both sides of the Life and Death Gorge near the wall of the cage. It seemed that Han Fei had tried his best to control the fluctuations of his aura, but he could still be detected. Obviously, Han Fei's every move couldn't escape the eyes of these Half-King Realm Masters. Immediately, someone's face changed. "Not good, Brother Nyo hasn't made a breakthrough because he's not under enough pressure. Is he going to quit or not?" Someone said solemnly, "This is the best time for a breakthrough. If the crab Qianlong could last a little longer, Brother Nyo would definitely make a breakthrough. But now that he's in the middle, if he quits, he may have to wait for a few years." Ma Yuhan shouted, "Bull Demon King, come back." Ma Yuhan's voice was not shy. Even he felt that Han Fei's current state was not right. The crab Qianlong was not the strongest existence among the mid-level venerables. If Han Fei challenged it again, the opponent would probably be the strongest mid-level venerable. Han Fei gritted his teeth, and white air spurted out of his nostrils. He seemed to be very unwilling to give up. On the other side, on the sea demon's side, countless people were shocked. Han Fei could actually kill enemies of higher realms? This person's talent was truly terrifying. If he managed to break through to the intermediate venerable realm, he might become the strongest intermediate venerable realm expert in the cage after a few hundred years. The moment Ma Yuhan shouted, The merman expert swept his gaze over, and someone immediately shouted, "Demon Bull King, right? Were they going to enter the arena just like that? Isn't it hard to break through at the critical juncture? If you have the guts, why don't we fight again?" Someone shouted, "Bull Demon King, as long as you admit defeat today, we will watch you die. But you are a coward. A true expert dares to face all challenges before him." Someone scolded, "Demon Bull King, if you have the guts, stay here and don't leave. Quit while you're ahead? Is this your so-called insolence? If that's the case, how can you be worthy of being an expert?" For a time, the people of Black Blood City clamored non-stop, all asking Han Fei to stay and not leave. And behind Han Fei, someone was also shouting, "Brother Bull, don't be fooled. We've killed 2 venerables today. We've earned enough. Brother Bull, don't listen to these sea demons' nonsense. They're just trying to bully you with numbers. Bull Demon King, you can come back. You've earned enough today." Han Fei absorbed the last wisp of soul power and glanced at the information in his eyes. His soul power had recovered to 78,673 points, only a little more than 1,000 points away from the current limit of his soul power. As long as he hunted down a peak-level venerable, his soul power might be restored. At this time, he was asked to retreat? How could he retreat? He couldn't retreat even if he was beaten to death. Han Fei took a breath, and the violent energy and spiritual energy around him all surged into his body. In the eyes of outsiders, the cracks on Han Fei's body were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. But after a while, Han Fei seemed to have recovered. However, no one thought that Han Fei had really recovered. The injuries caused by the Battle of Venerables were not as simple as healing the external injuries. However, Han Fei's actions made the eyes of many sea demons light up. Someone said, "The brains of the water buffaloes are not very good. If we stimulate him again, he'll definitely stay." Someone scolded, "Bull Demon King, stupid cow, don't run if you have the guts. I'll chop you under my feet in 3 slashes." Someone sneered, "Bull Demon King, let's fight one-on-one. I'll easily turn you into a cow." Han Fei looked at the sea demons who were swearing, only feeling that these people's language was very poor. In the end, they didn't make any progress. Although Han Fei's heart was calm on the surface, his face was already flushed. His 2 nostrils were spewing white gas. Han Fei suddenly turned his head. "I want to fight a group battle." "Wow!" Ma Yuhan was slightly taken aback. White Martin, Lynx, Greenwood, Fei Chi, Ma Qilin, and Niu Dali were all stunned. Fight a group battle? Fighting a group battle was much more difficult than fighting a one-on-one battle. If it was a one-on-one battle, that would still depend on their own means. However, if it was a group battle, it would be easy for them to scheme against others. Except for Ma Yuhan, the other 2 Half-King Realm powerhouses said, "Bull Demon King, don't mess around. A group battle is not a casual fight. If you're careless, you may lose more than you gain." However, Han Fei looked straight at Niu Dali. Seeing Han Fei's cold expression, Niu Dali's heart did a flip. Is he doing this on purpose? Does he want me to persuade Ma Yuhan? Han Fei said, "I want to fight a group battle." Han Fei said this to Niu Dali. Niu Dali immediately understood and hurriedly said to Ma Yuhan via voice transmission, "Commander Ma, I think we can fight." Ma Yuhan glanced at Niu Dali. The Bull Demon King has already shown the power of an intermediate venerable. The other party will definitely use this reason to directly send the combat power of an intermediate venerable. If the other party only sends intermediate venerables to hunt the Bull Demon King, it will be extremely disadvantageous for him. Niu Dali couldn't help but remember what Han Fei said when he came here today. He said, "Who said that his combat power stopped at the peak of an intermediate venerable?" Now, the Bull Demon King seemed to be confident that he could persuade Ma Yuhan. So, Niu Dali immediately took a breath and said with a firm look in his eyes, "I believe him." Ma Yuhan looked at Niu Dali. "Are you sure?" Niodali nodded. Yes. Although he didn't know why, Ma Yuhan felt that this bull demon king might not be simple, so he replied, okay. With that, Ma Yuhan looked at the sea demons and shouted, Spirit mermaids and mermaids, do you hear that? Do you dare to fight in a group battle, or are you afraid? If you don't dare to fight, then today's battle will end here. The spirit mermaids and mermaids were the commander-level powerhouses on the sea demons' side. When Han Fei said he wanted to fight in a group battle, he had been thinking about Han Fei's purpose. Although he knew that the Bull Demon King was very extraordinary and might have the power to fight. But to fight in a group battle? It was impossible that he didn't have a purpose. The first thought in the spirit mermaid's mind was that Han Fei wanted to help him make a breakthrough in the battle with the power of a team. Anyone who could make a breakthrough in the battle was a tough guy. To achieve a breakthrough in battle, one needed to have extremely strong control over one's strength. While bearing the pressure of the breakthrough, he had to fight. If he was distracted, he might be interrupted if he was careless. However, there were also benefits. Once he made a breakthrough in the battle, he could change the situation of the battle. Especially for a heavenly talent like Han Fei, once he stepped into the intermediate venerable realm, his strength would definitely be comparable to that of a peak-level intermediate venerable. Together with his space Tao, ordinary people were no match for him at all. However, as a half-king powerhouse, would the spirit mermaids be afraid of this? His heart stirred, and he had an idea. The spirit mermaids and mermaids roared, why not? However, we need an advanced venerable to join this battle. Hearing this, Ma Yuhan immediately shouted, Bulsh *T, this is a battle between intermediate venerables. What's the big deal if an advanced venerable joins? The spirit mermaids and mermaids said, you proposed the group battle. Besides, I didn't say that the Demon Beast Alliance doesn't allow advanced venerables to join the battle. As it happens, we haven't had any battles in the past few years. Then let's test the beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels to see if the Demon Beast Alliance has really become arrogant in the past 2 years. The spirit mermaids and mermaids deliberately said that they wanted to test their strength across 3 realms. In fact, it was nothing more than a plan in its mind. Ma Yuhan was about to respond, but the white ferret said with a smile, let me do it. As soon as the white ferret finished speaking, the lynx took a step forward. Let me do it. I'm afraid they just want to spy on you and see if you have reached the peak. I'll do it. The white ferret shrugged. Okay, you do it. The lynx took a step forward and meowed, which spread throughout the life and death gorge. The lynx said, I want to eat fish. You'd better send a fish up. Seeing the lynx step forward, Niodali knew that it must be a middle-level venerable. He had already reached the peak of the intermediate level and had fought in more than 30 battles, so he was very experienced. Niodali took a step forward. Me too. Han Fei was wondering if he should show his true strength if the other party sent an advanced venerable. At this moment, Niodali suddenly joined the battle, which meant that the other party could send 2 middle-level venerables at once. Han Fei hurriedly shouted, Mid-level venerables, don't come anymore. Brother Qilin, Brother Fat 7, do you dare to come up and fight me? Han Fei originally planned to send 3 more junior venerables in addition to the lynx. In this way, if he burst out, he could at least kill 1 or 2 more people in an instant. However, it didn't matter if Niodali came. Anyway, as long as the other party sent a junior venerable, they would be dead. Ma Qilin and Fat 7 were stunned when they heard Han Fei's call. Damn, this is the first time we've met. Besides, there are only advanced venerables on the battlefield. If we go up, won't we be killed in minutes? However, as venerables, neither Ma Qilin nor Fat 7 would be afraid to fight. Besides, with the lynx, they were confident. On the sea demon side, the spirit mermaid and mermaid said lightly, You Menglong Yu Kong Hylianxing by Yuhua. You 4 go up. And 1 more person. Zhang Wandian, you come. With the voice of the spirit mermaid and mermaid, The people who were called stepped forward one after another. When the name Zhang Wandian was called out, a mountain 3,000 kilometers away split open, and a long tentacle pulled out from the belly of the mountain. A strange giant black octopus was crossing over. Chapter 1538. A group battle at the Venerable Realm was a big deal no matter where it was. Even in the Wall of Death, it had been decades since a fight had happened. When Han Fei heard the word decades just now, he didn't feel good. If you knew that there might not be a large-scale group battle outside for hundreds of years, what would you think? Mountain Cat stepped beside Han Fei. He liked to be called Mountain Cat. Among all the cats on the Beast Island, only Mountain Cat had grown to the advanced Venerable Realm. Of course, although tigers and leopards also belonged to the cat family, their breeds were too different. However, perhaps because he had been with these creatures for a long time, Mountain Cat didn't feel that his aura was inferior to any of them. At this moment, Mountain Cat looked at Han Fei and said, "Bai Yuhua is an advanced venerable. Leave him to me. But you have to know his Tao." His true form was a brush, and he could draw the strength of an Exalt Realm expert in one go. Or he can bind a space and draw you into the painting. It was the first time that Han Fei had heard of such a Tao. Draw people into the painting? Han Fei asked. Like arrays or seals, it can trap people? Mountain Cat nodded. You shouldn't have called Ma Qilin and Fat 7 together. That way, it wouldn't be a big problem for us to fight 3 against 3. However, not everyone in the Junior Venerable Realm is as strong as you. If they are trapped, once someone bypasses you, it will be difficult to guarantee their safety. Niu Dali looked at Ma Qilin and Fat 7 and said, You too, after the battle starts, find a way to lead the opponents to the sides and away from our battlefield. Wait a minute, Han Fei smiled slightly and said, No. No matter how strong the opponent is, he is only an advanced venerable. If the top forces can't go up, the opponent's junior venerable can come to my side. Huh. Han Fei smiled mysteriously. If you believe me, let's try. Eat the 5 of them in one bite. After a while, Han Fei learned from Mountain Cat that in addition to the one named Bai Yuhua, Yu Menglong was also an intermediate venerable, good at illusions and dreams. As for Yu Kong and Hai Lianxing, they were both beginner venerables. It was obvious that they were prepared to deal with Ma Qilin and Fei Qi. The last one was Zhang Wandian. Although he sounded like an octopus, he wasn't even familiar with lynx. According to Mountain Cat, this person might have been at the human's undead city. For some unknown reason, he came to the Life and Death Gorge. The reason why he was so sure was because Zhang Wandian had never fought in the Life and Death Gorge. That said, it was impossible for a fella that had cultivated to the peak of the intermediate venerable one to not have any achievements. If this achievement wasn't in the Life and Death Gorge, then it must have been in the human race's undead city. Lynx had said that Black Blood City and the Forest of Terror should be allies. The structure of Black Blood City and the Demon Beast Alliance was similar. The Demon Beast Alliance had 2 enemies, Black Blood City and the Forest of Terror. Black Blood City also had 2 enemies. One was the Demon Beast Alliance, and the other was the human race's Immortal City. They rarely interacted with humans and the Forest of Terror. This made Han Fei even more sure that this so-called cage should be in the shape of a sun. Since this Zhang Wandian often fought with humans, Han Fei thought that he might be more familiar with the human race's means. In any case, the opponent's lineup was exactly the same as his own, which was an advanced venerable, 2 intermediate venerables, and 2 junior venerables. However, Han Fei didn't care about this lineup. After all, in his eyes, these people were all resources. Han Fei's goal was to kill at least 3 of them. The so-called group battle was usually carried out when the 2 sides were of equal strength. Because they were of equal strength, they could cooperate with each other. However, compared with the 5 major professions of the human race, this kind of group battle obviously didn't have much cooperation. Now there were junior, intermediate, and advanced venerables, so it was obviously more difficult to fight together. After all, the weak needed to be taken care of by the strong. If the weak were eliminated, the opponent's weak would free up and surround the strong on his side, which would be extremely disadvantageous to his side. Therefore, the current approach was: the junior venerables would take away the junior venerables, and the advanced venerables would take away the advanced venerables. Han Fei immediately made up his mind. Should I cooperate with Niu Dali and kill these two middle-level venerables first? However, if he and Niu Dali killed the two intermediate venerables, the other venerables would have to run away desperately. After all, it was 5 against 3, and they were in a higher realm, so there was no way for them to survive. After all, it was 5 against 3, and they were at a higher cultivation level. It was impossible for them to survive. Immediately, Han Fei winked at Ma Qilin. "Oh ah, Fat 7 rolled his eyes at him. "Stop barking. Watch me." Fat 7 shouted, "Yu Kong, Hailianxing, you two idle fishes, come over and fight." Fat 7 shouted, "Yu Kong, Hailianxing, you two idle fishes, come over and fight." Originally, the level of this battle had been raised to that of an intermediate venerable. God knew why Han Fei called Ma Qilin and Fat 7? And Ma Yuhan actually agreed. At this moment, Yu Kong and Hailianxing were wondering how to take Ma Qilin and Fat 7 away. However, the other party challenged them first. Of course, this was a good thing. Swish, swish, the 4 of them fled one after another and rushed to the left side of the battlefield. And the others didn't even look at them. After all, a junior venerable was still far from them. With a meow, the mountain cat crooked its finger at Bai Yuhua. "Hua Hua, come over and fight with me." The mountain cat said to Han Fei and Niu Dali, "Give me half an hour." Bai Yuhua sneered. "Mystic Shadow, do you think you can escape from my pen just because you have the Great Path? Half an hour? You can't even last 10 minutes, can you?" Bai Yuhua seemed to be very familiar with the mountain cat, calling its real name and mocking it. The mountain cat strode gracefully, stretched out its claws, and tore open the void on the right side. "You'll know when we fight." At this time, only Han Fei and Niu Dali were left against Zhang Wandian and Yu Menglong. Han Fei was about to choose Yu Menglong because he should be able to easily break illusions and dreams. This was not the first or second time he had experienced such a strange situation. When he crossed the river of time in the sea-quelling painting, with the help of his yin-yang divine eyes, he should be able to easily break them. However, at this moment, the voice of the old turtle suddenly sounded in Han Fei's heart. "There is an unknown power in that octopus's body, a very powerful power. It seems to be some kind of rare treasure. I'm afraid his strength is more than that." Han Fei's face changed slightly. Zhang Wandian was already a peak-level intermediate venerable. If he said there was something wrong with his strength, did it mean that his strength had reached the advanced venerable realm? Immediately, Han Fei said to Niu Dali, "Help me temporarily restrain Yu Menglong. Remember, once you can't resist, tell me immediately and I'll solve the battle." Han Fei's face became ugly. Originally, he thought that the other party only had one advanced venerable. Now it seemed that there might be more than one. Then, the other party's camp became similar to his side again. If this Zhang Wandian had the combat power of an advanced venerable, he could also deal with him. He just didn't know if Zhang Wandian had just entered the advanced venerable realm. If he had, then he could still kill him. After all, in terms of means, as long as the other party hadn't reached the peak-level venerable realm or had some secret methods, they couldn't be his opponent at all. Niu Dali glanced at Han Fei. "No problem. I've fought Yu Menglong before. His illusion array can't kill me." Han Fei grinned, and then his face suddenly froze. Kill. This time, Han Fei was very greedy. He abandoned the embroidery needle, Snowmorn, and the infinity water was also put away. Just now, in the battle to kill the crab Qianlong, the infinity water had already exploded. If it exploded again, its power would be greatly reduced. Maybe it could hurt an intermediate venerable, but to hurt an advanced venerable? It was still quite difficult. Swish! Han Fei casually waved his hand, and 100-meter-long wild water blade slashed at Zhang Wandian. It could be said that Han Fei used all the power he could exert in this blow without the help of the Great Path. Humph! You've learned quite a lot of combat skills. Zhang Wandian smiled. At the moment Han Fei attacked, 9 tentacles drilled into the void. After Han Fei slashed at them, Han Fei suddenly found that the surrounding 500-kilometer radius was actually trapped by an array. The 9 huge tentacles had already turned into huge void shadows, directly surrounding him. At that moment, Han Fei still wanted to use the star's transposition technique to escape. However, countless pairs of big eyes opened on those tentacles. As soon as those large eyes opened, the entire space seemed to have been sealed. Fuse! When seeing eyes appearing in all directions, Han Fei didn't hesitate to fuse with Little Black and Little White. At that moment, Han Fei activated the yin-yang divine eyes, turned around and launched a sacrificing punch, which smashed through one of the eyes in the void of the giant claw with terrifying power and speed. In the outside world, many people were surprised. Eye technique? How can the Bull Demon King even know eye technique? Even Ma Yuhun and the others were asking this question. Could a single person master so many messy combat skills? Someone said, I heard that this Bull Demon King has been sealed in the Demon Subduing Tower for more than 2,700 years. He fights with all kinds of creatures every day. Maybe he learned it from them? Zhang Wandian was also slightly surprised. He had considered that his 1,000 Eyes illusion array might not be able to stop Han Fei. However, he didn't expect that it would be broken so quickly. It was almost broken in seconds, okay? As soon as the eye of the array was broken, the shocking knife shadow slashed out. The saber radiance pierced through the air, ignoring all obstacles in space and arriving right in front of Zhang Wandian. This attack was fierce enough. The octopus stretched out its claw in the void, and Han Fei's knife light seemed to be fixed in the air. Zhang Wandian said, Interesting. Just because you can break my illusion array doesn't mean you can block my soul-destroying eyes. The thousands of eyes on the tentacles spurted out red lasers and swept the tentacles for more than 30 times, directly breaking Han Fei's knife-drawing technique. Han Fei grinned. Since when can an octopus be so arrogant to me? Swish, swish, swish. Within 500 kilometers, the entire sea area turned into knives. Even the plankton in the sea became knives, the spiritual energy became knives, and the seawater became knives. Han Fei grinned hideously. Take my blade, Purgatory. Chapter 1539. The core of the Great Way was the use of the Tao. The Great Way was different from the laws. Using the Great Way could greatly enhance one's strength on the Great Way one walked. Zhang Wandian's Great Way seemed to be related to his eyes, which were equivalent to the human eye technique. At this time, thousands of red lasers shot at him. Even with the yin-yang divine eyes, Han Fei could only judge the landing point of some of the lasers in advance and dodge them. However, dodging was obviously not enough. Puff, puff, puff. Han Fei's body was riddled with hundreds of small holes. For Han Fei, this was not a serious injury. However, the power of the opponent's eyes couldn't be underestimated since they could penetrate his skin and flesh. Han Fei stretched out his hand and grasped, and the surrounding seawater turned into a water-shaped blade, which was extremely smooth and looked like a mirror. Swish, 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 countless lasers were flipping, and Han Fei's speed suddenly doubled. In the face of such ultra-long distance attacks, long-range combat was disadvantageous to Han Fei. However, once he got close, the octopus couldn't do anything. In the Life and Death Gorge, Han Fei's scene was very huge. The dense red lasers, after being refracted by the mirror effect, were all over the sky. The scene was like a dense bombardment. On the Black Blood City side, many people saw Zhang Wandian fight for the first time. This kind of terrifying bombardment was already extremely powerful, but even so, it couldn't kill Han Fei? The distance between Han Fei and Zhang Wandian was rapidly shortening. In order to show his strength, Han Fei turned into a giant golden bull and sprinted. Around the bull body, 1,000 mirrors wrapped. After only a few seconds, Zhang Wandian found that Han Fei's speed was much faster than his. If he fought a war of attrition, he wouldn't be able to win. Zhang Wandian quickly turned into a human body, but he still kept his 9 tentacles. Zhang Wandian sneered in his heart. In the next moment, the 9 tentacles tore a huge eye out of thin air. At this moment, there was a mysterious power surging in Zhang Wandian's body, and his aura rose wildly. In the blink of an eye, his aura reached the advanced venerable realm. In the outside world, Ma Yuhan's face changed greatly, and he immediately shouted, "Spirit mermaid, are you cheating?" The spirit shark snickered. "Don't spout nonsense. Take a closer look. Zhang Wandian's strength is indeed only at the peak of a middle-level venerable. Could it be that the secret technique couldn't be used? If you have the ability, use it too." Ma Yuhan's expression was ugly. He immediately shouted, "Bull Demon King, if you are no match for him, you can retreat." At this moment, Niu Dali seemed to have just broken through an invisible illusory array. Seeing the terrifying aura emanating from Zhang Wandian's side, he immediately shouted, "Bull Demon King, be careful!" Slurp. However, just as Niu Dali shouted to be careful, the terrifying light beam had already shot out. In an instant, it enveloped Han Fei. For a moment, everyone was looking at the dark blue pillar of light. Zhang Wandian sneered, "Do you think a low-level venerable like you can resist my soul extermination?" Bang! Suddenly, a splash appeared in the pillar of light. The sacrificing punch blasted out from the laser beam, but it was completely destroyed after it had traveled for more than 10 miles. Gotcha! Outside Han Fei's body, the golden bull shadow began to collapse. At this moment, Niu Dali left Yu Menglong and rushed over quickly. On the other side, Mountain Cat, who had just flown out, saw that Zhang Wandian could use the power of an advanced venerable, and it was a soul attack. How could he let this happen? Meow. Bai Yuhua chuckled. "You think I don't exist? Do you think I don't exist?" As soon as Mountain Cat tore the void, he saw that the void was filled as if it had never existed. Pop, pop, pop. In an instant, Mountain Cat split into thousands of incarnations, tearing open the void. "You only have 1 pen. Let's see how many places you can draw." Bai Yuhua chuckled. "Then let's see who gets there first." With that, Bai Yuhua raised his pen and drew, and a big round hole appeared. However, this was not a teleportation array, but a door. Mountain Cat's pupils suddenly shrank. At this time, it was too late to stop him. Although he was not very far from Bull Demon King, his speed was definitely not as fast as Bai Yuhua. In the meantime, there was at least a gap of 5 minutes. Niu Dali and Bull Demon King had to face 2 advanced venerables and a peak-level intermediate venerable. The consequences could be imagined. Niu Dali, run! In Mountain Cat's view, Bull Demon King was being bombarded at this moment. The power of Zhang Wandian's blow was not over yet. Although Bull Demon King seemed to be still resisting, that was only because Zhang Wandian's strength was not enough. If he was a real advanced venerable, Han Fei should have been bombarded into pieces at this moment, waiting to be reborn from a drop of blood. When Mountain Cat's voice came, Niu Dali's situation was not very good. She was about to help Han Fei, but she heard Yu Menglong suddenly sneer. "Want to run? Did you ask me? Dream intruder." Moo! At this moment, Han Fei let out a shrill cry, and his body expanded to 100 meters. In the blade purgatory, endless knife currents seemed to be blasting at Zhang Wandian. However, the tens of millions of eyes on Zhang Wandian's tentacles erupted with lasers. He wanted to end the battle quickly. As long as he could hold on for another 3 seconds and crush the Bull Demon King's soul, he would definitely die. The half-king spirit mermaids and mermen of Black Blood City smiled at this moment. This time, I finally won. Killing 2 cows is not bad. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Just after 3 seconds, a door in the void was opened, and Bai Yuhua walked out of the door. And at this time, Niu Dali also rushed out of the dream space, running wildly into a black light rushing over. Zhang Wandian smiled and said, "Kill Niu Dali. This Bull Demon King is powerless now." Bai Yuhua smiled gently, raised her pen, and began to draw. "I can make it. Kill this cow first. Void solidification. Void shattering. Oh, you're all here? Although it's a little different from the plan, it's indeed a bit interesting." Hearing this calm and arrogant voice, Zhang Wandian's face suddenly changed. He only felt that there was a terrible force gathering in the beam of light of his soul-destroying eye. At that moment, he saw a rod's shadow cross thousands of miles in the blink of an eye and directly penetrate his soul-destroying eye. The shadow of the rod was too fast, and its power was beyond his expectations. An advanced venerable? In the outside world, the smile on the face of the spirit mermaids and mermen suddenly froze. At this moment, he looked angrily at Ma Yuhun and shouted, "You are the cheaters." Although Ma Yuhun was also very shocked, he responded contemptuously, "Open your eyes and look. The Bull Demon King is a genuine peak-level junior venerable, who doesn't have a powerful secret method these days. How can the primitive divine bull be as weak as you think?" In fact, while Ma Yuhun shouted, he was also very nervous. Damn, this is too exciting. Just a second ago, the Bull Demon King seemed to be killed at any time. But the next second, he actually turned the tables? Zhang Wandian exclaimed, his 1,000 eyes merged, and the beam of light reappeared, trying to resist Han Fei's sacrificing punch. However, just when everyone was shocked, Bai Yuhua suddenly exclaimed, "Why is my painting ineffective?" However, at this moment, it was no longer a question of whether to paint or not, because Han Fei had disappeared. Zhang Wandian's heart trembled inexplicably, and he felt a life-and-death crisis. Rip! The void was torn apart, 2 rays of silver light burst out, and Zhang Wandian was directly cut into 4 pieces. At this moment, Zhang Wandian was certainly not dead. Otherwise, it would be looking down on him, a creature with several brains. He shouted, "Soul explosion!" However, nothing happened in the next moment. Instead, he felt that his surging spirit had been invaded by something. Rumble! In the next moment, Zhang Wandian blew himself up uncontrollably. Han Fei smiled leisurely. "I forgot to tell you, this place is forbidden." Gotcha! In the sky, a red crack reappeared. In just a few seconds, the battle was beautifully reversed, and a peak-level intermediate venerable died so easily. Han Fei hadn't finished absorbing the feedback from Zhang Wandian's soul. A big brush appeared in Bai Yuhua's hand, and he drew a circle under him. Han Fei knew that something was wrong. His forbidden space had been broken. Swish! Han Fei took a step and shot out the embroidery needle. Knock on the heavenly gate! Puff! Bai Yuhua's body was pierced, but the next moment, he and himself turned into a painting, and his body had appeared thousands of kilometers away. At this moment, Han Fei couldn't care less. In one step, he shortened the distance between the enemy and himself, and the 100-beast soul-devouring roar directly blasted into Bai Yuhua's mind. The latter just wanted to escape at this moment. Zhang Wandian died too quickly. The Bull Demon King hid his strength, but in fact, he was an existence that could kill an advanced venerable in seconds. Besides, Lynx was still on his way. In at most 2 minutes, Lynx would arrive. He had to escape in 2 minutes. However, Han Fei shouted again, "This place is forbidden." But Bai Yuhua sneered. "Don't waste your energy. You haven't fully mastered the power of the Great Path. You may be able to trap others, but you can't trap me." Bai Yuhua raised his hand and sketched out a still blue image. Bai Yuhua shouted, "Time freeze!" F***CK. Momentary time. At that moment, in the eyes of the outside world, that space, including Han Fei and Bai Yuhua, and even the seawater, had stopped flowing. However, it was in that frozen time that a spear light instantly penetrated Bai Yuhua's body. Puff! Bai Yuhua's body was pierced through, but this couldn't hurt his foundation. His brush was not affected by space, and he was about to draw himself out of the battlefield. However, Han Fei didn't do nothing either. With a thought from Han Fei, in this temporary frozen time, the void lines actually swallowed Zhang Wandian's soul. Han Fei felt refreshed. Turning his head, he found that there were still more than 200 points left, and his soul power would be completely repaired. Immediately, an invincible will suddenly emerged from Han Fei's body. The power of his will was not affected by the time freeze, and he pulled it out of thin air, grabbing a wisp of strange light blue light. Wow, the old turtle was shocked. What kind of technique is this? It can even catch time? Chapter 1540. Rip. The blade of time that Han Fei grabbed cut Bai Yuhua in an instant. Bai Yuhua's body aged at a speed visible to the naked eye. From his body to the pen, he was directly decayed. Han Fei didn't know that the Hinayana knife manual was so powerful. There was only one technique in the book, and that was knife drawing. Although the combat skill said that everything could be turned into a knife with the knife drawing technique. However, Han Fei never thought that he could take time out of it. Even when he tried to stop Bai Yuhua with his invincible will, Han Fei just wanted to pull out the space crack. Who the hell knew that he had pulled out the blade of time by mistake? Rumble, in the sky, another red crack appeared, and another venerable died. Han Fei hurriedly grabbed Bai Yuhua's soul with the void lines, but to his surprise, he didn't know if it was because of the power of time, but Bai Yuhua's soul had decayed. The absorption of his soul power was even worse than that of a junior venerable. If there was no accident, Han Fei only absorbed less than 500 points of soul power, but even if he only absorbed 500 points of soul power, Han Fei's soul power had been repaired. At this moment, Han Fei was a real peak-level junior venerable. Han Fei felt refreshed, and in an instant, he felt the signs of a breakthrough. When his soul power and physique had reached the required level, if he couldn't continue to squeeze out his potential, he could only make a breakthrough. However, Han Fei felt that he still had room for growth and could continue to become stronger, so he forcibly suppressed this desire to make a breakthrough. Rip. Lynx tore the void. Lynx was furious. Who could have expected that the battle would change so quickly? Sure enough, the Bull Demon King still couldn't hold on for 3 minutes? The crack in the sky reappeared, and Lynx even burned his blood to come here. He knew that only one of them had died, and there was still another waiting for him to save. However, when Lynx tore the void and returned here, he happened to see the Bull Demon King throwing away a decayed skeleton. Lynx was dumbfounded. "You're not dead?" Mountain Cat turned his head and saw Yu Menglong, who had given up on chasing Niu Dali and was already running away at full speed. Looking at Han Fei again, Mountain Cat found that although Han Fei's realm was still at the peak of a junior venerable, his aura was already on par with his. For a moment, Mountain Cat felt uncomfortable. "Am I seeing things?" Han Fei shouted. "Don't leave a single one alive. Kill them all." After that, under the shocked gazes of Mountain Cat and Niu Dali, Han Fei had already turned into a golden light and rushed towards Yu Menglong. Even though Mountain Cat could not accept this fact, if the Bull Demon King was not dead, then who was? Lynx immediately looked at the feather-like creature that was so rotten that it couldn't be any more rotten. Who else could it be but Bai Yuhua? His. Mountain Cat was shocked. He killed Zhang Wandian and Bai Yuhua? Niu Dali was dumbfounded as well. She knew that Han Fei was powerful, but she didn't know that Han Fei was so powerful. It was one thing for him to surpass a realm and kill an enemy. You actually crossed 2 realms in succession? Nyo Dali swallowed his saliva. I think so. Mountain Cat's expression suddenly changed. I'll stop you Kong and Hylianshing, you go after the Bull Demon King. At this time, Mountain Cat's heart was surging. In this battle, 2 high-level venerables had already fallen. Then, he was still present in this battle, so he had to kill at least 2 more. Since Han Fei could kill 2 high-level venerables, then Yu Menglong couldn't possibly escape. Therefore, as long as he stopped Yukong and Hylianshing, the 5 venerables of Black Blood City would be wiped out in this battle. At this moment, almost all the venerables watching the battle, even the explorers, realized this problem. As long as Black Blood City didn't save people, then in the Life and Death Gorge, none of the remaining 3 venerables of Black Blood City would survive. This was the disadvantage of surpassing 3 realms in combat power. Most importantly, it was the spirit mermaids and mermen who proposed to have the high-level venerables enter the battlefield. In one day, 7 venerables died. Even Black Blood City couldn't bear such a blow. Immediately, the spirit mermaids and mermen led the crowd and flew to the Life and Death Gorge, shouting at the same time, "We admit defeat in this battle. This battle is over." Ma Yuhan also led the crowd. Bulsh *T. Does Black Blood City intend to break the rules of the Life and Death Gorge? If you want to break this rule, then don't blame me for starting another great battle. White Martin shouted, "Humph! Black Blood City, can't you afford to lose? If you want to fight, I'll keep you company." Greenwood sneered. "It's been a long time since I launched a large-scale group battle. Let's see if Black Blood City still has the courage to start a war after losing 7 venerables." In the outside world, the Demi-Kings and Peak Stage venerables were extremely fast. While smiling, they collided with each other. Those below the Peak Stage were still on the way. They couldn't be so fast, so they needed time. And this time was enough for Han Fei. When he burst out the combat power of a high-level venerable, Han Fei knew that next time, he wanted to fight with the venerables of Black Blood City. That wouldn't be easy. They could be fooled once, but they couldn't be fooled all the time, right? Han Fei's original plan. Anyway, the Demon Beast Alliance still had the Forest of Horrors. At that time, he would go to the Forest of Horrors again. In the end, when there was really no place to go, he would go to the immortal city of the human clan and stroll around again. In the end, when there was really no one to fight with him, he could tentatively cross the so-called front, sneak into the territory of Black Blood City, and do something. Of course, these were all Han Fei's previous ideas. But at this moment, Han Fei felt that he could actually spend some time to make a breakthrough in the Demon Beast Alliance. At that time, his strength would be pushed to the peak stage of the mid-level venerable. With the trace of power of will he had accumulated and the time acceleration in Forge the Universe, he would probably be able to consolidate the realm of the mid-level venerable in only 2 or 3 years. At this moment, Yu Menglong's speed naturally couldn't compare with Han Fei's. In just about 2 minutes, Han Fei had already caught up. After all, he didn't practice the close distance technique for nothing. The moment Yu Menglong appeared in his field of vision, Han Fei immediately felt that there seemed to be a fog in front of him. There was a vague power that seemed to want to confuse his consciousness. However, with the yin-yang divine eyes, he could easily see where Yu Menglong was in the fog. At that moment, Han Fei chased all the way, but Zhang Xuanyu, Xia Shaochan, Lu Renquang, the Thug Academy, the Thousand Star City, the Age of Chaos. All kinds of times and characters appeared around Han Fei. Despite Han Fei's strong will and the yin-yang divine eyes that could see through everything, he was still distracted by this so-called art of confusion. Swish! Han Fei tapped his feet and his speed was extremely fast. In an instant, he surpassed Yu Menglong. Just when the two were only a few hundred kilometers away from each other, Han Fei's mind moved, and the space of 100 kilometers was directly shortened. Yu Menglong was shocked and hurriedly urged the stories and figures in Han Fei's memory to shake and bombard Han Fei's soul. There's a restrictive spell here, sacrificing punch. In terms of physique, strength, and spells, this Yu Menglong couldn't compare with Han Fei in any aspect. Under the bombardment of Han Fei's punch, all his bones were crushed, and the void lines directly locked him. At this moment, Han Fei split more than 1,000 points of soul power and scattered them into his limbs and bones. In his hand, Snowmorn appeared, and he nailed Yu Menglong with a sword, freezing his whole body into pieces. Seeing that Yu Menglong was still alive, Han Fei activated the navigator in his mind. Han Fei directly stretched out his hand and extracted a void dozens of kilometers away. The void saber twisted, and with a cracking sound, a crack appeared in the sky. It only took 2 minutes. The spirit mermaids and Ma Yuhun had just fought, and Yu Menglong had died. Han Fei put Yu Menglong's bones and shattered soul into Forge the Universe and slowly absorbed this person's soul. Now, there were still 2 people waiting to be harvested. For Han Fei, it was both vitality and soul. When Niu Dali arrived, he couldn't find Han Fei at all. Here, there were only traces of the battle, as well as some broken limbs and remains. Needless to say, in just a few minutes, Han Fei had already killed these people. Niu Dali really felt his blood freeze. In this life, he had never felt that the Water Buffalo clan was so fierce. A junior peak-level venerable killed a peak-level venerable? Moreover, it only took a few breaths of time. This had completely subverted his view of life. Ma Qilin and Fat Seven both felt their blood freeze. They were shocked. How long had it been since the battle started? 3 venerables had already died in a row? If it weren't for someone saying that the people of Black Blood City were dying, Ma Qilin and Fat Seven would have made an appointment to run away. Originally, this kind of battle that spanned 3 levels was enough to make people tremble in fear. The plan that Han Fei said before to lure people to his side hadn't even been implemented yet. But 3 King venerables had already died? Suddenly, there was a rumbling thunder in the sky. Qilin, Fat Seven, Stall Yukong and Hyliansheng. The other 3 venerables of Black Blood City have already died. These 2 must die. As soon as Ma Qilin heard his father's order, his blood surged and he stamped his hooves, creating huge waves. Ouch, 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 the donkey roared. Oh no, Qilin roared, and the seawater flowed backward. Fat Seven was even more ferocious. Thousands of big thorns burst out of his body, blocking the void. Even if he had to burn his essence blood, he had to kill the 2 of them. Yukong and Hyliansheng had already been fighting crazily. Seeing that Ma Qilin and Fat Seven wouldn't let them go, the 2 immediately exchanged a look. Yukong suddenly rushed at the 2, his body expanding and his power collapsing. Ma Qilin exclaimed, "Is this guy going to blow himself up?" Fat Seven roared, "Who? Don't let him go even if he blows himself up." The 2 of them glanced at each other and joined forces to attack Yukong. Rumble, generally speaking, it wasn't difficult for people in the same realm to escape as long as they didn't try to kill them. Under the entanglement of Ma Qilin and Fat Seven, Yukong blew himself up, and Hyliansheng grabbed a fish scale and fled. However, as soon as the 2 fled for thousands of kilometers, they saw the void was torn apart and Lynx had arrived. Lynx was about to take action, when he felt the void shake and a figure came straight to this place. The next moment, the void was torn apart, and Han Fei had already appeared here. Lynx couldn't help grinning. "So fast. This is your first battle, so I'll leave the battle records of these 2 venerables to you. But you have to leave some space for this cat. I really want to eat fish." Han Fei grinned. "Of course." Chapter 1541. The combat power of 2 advanced venerables was chasing 2 peak-level junior venerables. How could they not kill them in seconds? Unless the 2 peak-level junior venerables had Han Fei's background and opportunities. Without any suspense, Yukong and Hyliansheng were smashed by Han Fei as soon as Yukong was reborn. When Ma Qilin and Fat Seven caught up and saw this scene, they couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Just now, when Han Fei first came to the Life and Death Gorge, they were only surprised because of a bull of the Water Buffalo clan. But now, they had long forgotten Han Fei's race and realm. As the saying goes, seeing is believing. Han Fei personally crushed a venerable of the same realm as him in front of them. Wasn't this shocking enough? When Yu Kong died, Hai Lianxing chose to self-destruct as soon as possible. Unfortunately, with Han Fei and Mountain Cat there, how could they give him a chance to self-destruct? Hai Lianxing's feet were shrouded in shadows, and his body stiffened there. And Han Fei didn't hesitate to kill Hai Lianxing with a slash of his knife. Above the sky. Rumble, rumble, in less than an hour, 7 venerables died, which directly shocked everyone inside and outside the Life and Death Gorge. Outside the Life and Death Gorge, the explorers who watched the whole battle were already roaring. The roar of the beasts shook the world like a bell. Rolling ripples spread for thousands of miles. Someone was excited. Too strong. The Bull Demon King is really too strong. 3 battles and 7 kills, the first person in the history of the cage. Someone's face turned red, and his eyes were full of admiration. The Bull Demon King told us that it is also possible to fight across realms. Our bodies are strong, so why can't we fight across realms? Gotcha. Someone was so excited that his blood rushed to his head, and his spiritual energy burst out, directly breaking through the realm. For a moment, the Demon-Beast Alliance was shouting crazily. There was no need for anyone to give an order at all. As a messenger, a white wolf as swift as a shadow had already rushed to the teleportation array in the rear and took the initiative to report the good news. In fact, the Beast Island had long been in an uproar. Lei Xiao was the first person Ma Yuhun asked to report back to the Beast Island. His speed was so fast that it only took him less than an hour to arrive at his destination. Lei Xiao ran from teleportation array to teleportation array. When they were about 200,000 li away from the Thousand Beast Island, Lei Xiao shouted out loud, because he knew someone would hear him. Victory at the Life and Death Gorge. Demon Bull King killed Prawn Wensi in 30 breaths, showing the domineering might of our Demon Beast Alliance. When Lei Xiao was about to enter the Thousand Beasts Island, he shouted again, Victory report, victory report. Demon Bull King slaughtered the Venerable, killing Prawn Wensi in 30 breaths. Roar. As soon as Lei Xiao's voice came out, the entire Myriad Beast Island spontaneously roared. These days, they also knew who the Demon Bull King was. That was the new Venerable Bull. A giant wolf howled towards the sky, good news! The Bull Demon King has killed Prawn Wensi within 30 breaths. Dong dong dong. There was a creature with a fat body that was beating a drum. Its body vibrated. Good news! While everyone was cheering in the valley, tens of venerables had already gathered at the Great Rift Gorge. These people had already seen the changes in the sky. In reality, although the red marks on the horizon were faint, the weather had changed. Many demon beasts that weren't venerables raised their heads towards the sky, wanting to see if this was the sign of a venerable's death. Someone sighed. No. Demon Bull King has only been at the Life and Death Gorge for less than 4 hours, right? He killed a venerable just like that? Someone said in surprise. As far as I know, that Prawn Wensi's strength is quite extraordinary. He's a peak elementary venerable. There are those who can beat him, but those who can kill him. Crocodile shouted. Nonsense, is Brother Bull's strength an ordinary peak elementary venerable? Even Nyo Dolly was beaten to the ground. Wouldn't Prawn Wensi be a piece of cake? Xiong Chaoshui walked over with a piece of dried fish. Old Crocodile's words make sense. Demon Bull King can easily defeat an elementary venerable. This is already a foregone conclusion. Killing one venerable is enough to make Black Blood City vomit blood. The ape demon also walked over leisurely with Old Goat. Sigh. Do you guys want to gather and have a barbecue? I've made a lot of Demon Bull King's seasoning and planted a large area. That thing is simply too long. Roar! A lion roared. Wait for me for the barbecue. I'll bring wine. Old Goat said leisurely. I expected Demon Bull King to kill a venerable. It would be strange if he didn't. These people knew Han Fei's strength very well. After all, those hundreds of battles weren't fought for nothing. Basically, Han Fei had used all of his skills except for those that needed to be kept secret. So, this group of people slowly began to barbecue. For them, eating was not very urgent. They couldn't get enough of the overwhelming aroma. Since it was a barbecue, they could take their time. However, as soon as the ape demon and the others sprinkled various garlic seasonings, suddenly, the old goat's heart stirred and he revealed a faint smile. Another one? Jiao Mengyue suddenly said, "Ha! Look, there are slight cracks in the sky. The sky has changed color. This should be the sign of the death of the second venerable in the life and death gorge, right? The first venerable, Yao Wensi, died. Because his realm was not high and the distance was relatively far, although the sky had changed slightly, it wasn't so obvious. However, this time, there was no need for anyone to report it. Everyone knew that another supreme being had fallen. At that time, everyone's face became solemn. Knowing was one thing, but was the fallen venerable one a sea monster or a monster? They didn't know. How could they not be worried? Immediately, everyone's gazes turned to Old Yang. Old Goat smiled slightly. "Continue the barbecue." Xiong Chaoshui laughed. "You almost scared me. It seems that Demon Bull King has killed another venerable. The death of 2 venerables in a row is enough to make Black Blood City suffer. How many years will it take to cultivate him?" The Golden Tiger strode over. "Woo! I'm not bragging, but it's not easy for Demon Bull King to die. Indestructible golden body. Everyone, the indestructible golden body is not so easy to defeat." Yin Tsang nodded. "Indeed. However, I'm afraid that he will be exposed if he kills 2 venerables and 1 venerable." They had just talked for a while when another voice rose in the sky above the island of beasts. "Demon Bull King kills a venerable and kills a mid-level venerable, Crab Qianlong. Demon Bull King kills a venerable and kills a mid-level venerable, Crab Qianlong. Demon Bull King kills a venerable and kills a mid-level venerable, Crab Qianlong." In the valley, many demon beasts were dumbfounded. Someone killed 2 venerables in a row? Wasn't this killing of a venerable a little too fast? However, it wasn't impossible to kill 2 venerables in a row, but it was rare. It only proved that the Demon Bull King was very powerful. Of course, the demon beasts cheered. It didn't matter if they knew the Demon Bull King or not. It was fine as long as he was a demon beast. However, when another more obvious crack appeared in the sky, a rain of blood began to fall. This time around, even Old Yang's expression turned serious. The ape demon and the others who were barbecuing were confused. Another venerable? Everyone looked at Old Goat. Old Goat pinched his fingers. The life and death gorge is in turmoil, but it seems that everything happened in an instant. Therefore, I immediately divined that it was very likely that they were still trapped in a life and death situation. Boom again, the red crack appeared in the sky. It was only a few seconds apart. In such a short time, 2 venerables died in a row, and the phenomenon was so obvious. This time, even Yang Shinji wasn't sure. At this moment, all the venerables, including Old Goat, looked up at the sky. They expected that Han Fei would kill 2 venerables in the life and death gorge, but most people thought that Han Fei could only kill 1 venerable. Even if some people joked that Han Fei might kill 2 venerables, they didn't take it seriously. It was just a joke. But now, how many venerables had he killed? This was the 4th one. Gulp. Crocodile Tai swallowed and said, Is a war breaking out in the life and death gorge?" Yang Shinji quickly calculated, then frowned and said, "No. Even if there is a war over there, I'm not afraid. With 3.5 venerables and 67 venerables, unless Black Blood City wants to launch a world-shaking war. But you and I both know that's impossible." Boom! After only 20 seconds, another red crack appeared in the sky, and a rain of blood poured down. The entire myriad beast island was silent. They were waiting. Obviously, something big had happened in the Life and Death Gorge. Yang Shinji pinched his fingers to calculate, but soon, he frowned. This is strange, why did my divination technique show a mass of chaos? Jiao Mengyue, Xiong Chaoshui, Golden Tiger, Yin Tsang. I order you four to go to the Life and Death Gorge immediately. I'll wait for half an hour. If I still can't predict it, someone else will go. Yes. At this moment, they didn't care about the barbecue. They didn't dare to neglect such a big event like the Life and Death Gorge. The four stepped through the void, but before they reached the first teleportation array, rumble, Jiao Mengyue's expression changed drastically. Hurry up, something might have happened over there. Although Jiao Mengyue and the others didn't talk to Han Fei about their specific strength, Han Fei already knew about them. Jiao Mengyue and Golden Tiger were peak stage venerables, while Xiong Chaoshui and the others were peak stage advanced venerables. Their strength was enough to defeat a half-venerable. They were extremely fast. After passing through 8 teleportation arrays, they saw a white wolf sprinting towards them. Seeing that they were from the same race, Yin Tsang immediately yelled, "Little wolf, what happened at the Life and Death Gorge?" The white wolf saw that there were 4 venerables, and one of them was the great venerable Silvert Song. It immediately said excitedly, "Great venerable Silvert Song, the bull demon king killed 5 people in a group battle. He killed 1 advanced venerable, 2 mid-level venerables, and 2 beginner venerables. He greatly increased the power of our demon-beast alliance." Chapter 1542. Yin Tsang and the other 3 were dumbfounded. The bull demon king killed 5 more times? No matter how they thought about it, this didn't sound very reliable. You slaughtered a peak elementary venerable. This was expected and not surprising. You slaughtered a peak intermediate venerable. This wasn't expected, but everyone could accept it. After all, anyone could have a burst of power. But you slaughtered a high-level venerable too? What was going on? Could a peak elementary venerable kill an enemy 2 levels higher? Xiong Chaoshui roared, "Little wolf, do you know, what are you talking about?" The little white wolf's voice resonated. "Great venerables, the bull demon king really slaughtered 7 of them. We all saw it with our own eyes. It can't be fake." The 4 looked at each other. It seemed that the bull demon king had hidden his strength well. Yin Tsang said, "Go back and tell them that we are going to the Life and Death Gorge." When Yin Tsang and the other 3 arrived at the Life and Death Gorge, there were actually 7 or 8 venerables fighting. Ma Yuhun was fighting the spirit mermaids and mermen. The rest were peak venerables. The spirit mermaids and mermen didn't start a war after all. He knew that these beasts weren't afraid of a fight. If they started a war rashly, it wouldn't end well for them. Plus, when Bai Yuhua and Zhang Wandian died, the chances of the other 3 surviving were extremely small. It wasn't as if he hadn't expected this. However, the spirit mermaids and mermen didn't expect that the bull demon king would be such a huge variable. Was the lynx a match for Bai Yuhua? Let's not talk about that for now. Zhang Wandian's spells were easily broken by this guy. How could there be such a powerful peak elementary venerable? The spirit mermaids and mermen knew that they had been tricked this time. 7 of them had died in one day. This would definitely be a heavy blow to Black Blood City's morale. Most importantly, the spirit mermaids and mermen didn't dare to fight now. The Demon Beast Alliance didn't know that they had escaped from the cage and lost more than 10 of them. Even the king was injured now. Including today's situation, Black Blood City had lost nearly 20 of them in 2 to 3 years. How many people had fallen? How could it be? Helpless, the spirit mermaids and mermen could only fight Ma Yuhun to express their anger. At last, the spirit merman and merman growled, "What a spirit beast alliance, what a bull demon king! Black Blood City will remember what happened today. I'll definitely pay you back double in the future." Han Fei sneered inwardly. "Others may not know about the situation in your Black Blood City, but how could I not? In order to take down Shui Mu Tian, the Black Snail King had lost a Saint Realm warrior and more than 10 venerables. Today, if these 7 people were to fall, it would definitely be a serious blow. Moreover, Black Blood City had to have paid a price to break out of the cage and enter the Yin-Yang sky. Therefore, hearing the spirit mermaids and mermen's words, Han Fei's heart was filled with disdain. In any case, he had achieved his goal this time, and the damage to his divine soul was completely healed. He even separated more than 2,000 divine souls and prepared to fuse them with the golden body. At the moment, Ma Yuhan and those spirit mermaids and mermen had already returned to their own camps. Inside the life and death gorge, the killing intent was too heavy. It was temporarily not suitable for cultivation. Therefore, whether it was the Demon Beast Alliance or Black Blood City, they wouldn't be sending people to train their troops for the time being. When Han Fei and the others came back, there was a burst of cheers. Qing Mu squinted his eyes and smiled. "Good boy, you hid your strength so well. You obviously have the strength of an advanced venerable, but you showed off your strength as a beginner venerable. This time, the spirit mermaids and mermen must be so angry that they vomited blood." The white ferret said leisurely, "Yes. Little brother Nyo, you are awesome. You are the first person in the history of the cage to kill 7 venerables in 3 battles." Roar. In the distance, the golden tiger roared, "Did we miss something? Brother Nyo, did you really kill 7 venerables?" Jiao Mengyue said, "How many times do you want to ask? Countless people have said that killing 7 venerables means killing 7 venerables. How can it be fake?" Xiong Chaoshui laughed and said, "Ha ha ha. Although I didn't see this scene with my own eyes, Black Blood City must celebrate the death of 7 venerables in a row." Yin Song looked at Ma Yuhan and said, "Old Ma, Old Yang, let us have a look. It's really... The weather just now changed so fast that we thought something had happened here and were ready to come to help." Ma Yuhan grinned and said, "Ha ha ha, it's indeed a good thing. Unfortunately, Old Yang can only calculate but can't see. What a pity." Ma Yuhan's voice reverberated throughout the Life and Death Gorge. "Brothers, boys. Life and Death Gorge, after this great victory, let's hold a banquet for 3 days. Eat to your heart's content." Roar. Howl. In the cheers, everyone turned their eyes to Han Fei. At this moment, Han Fei pretended to be weak, and his aura had dropped again. Ma Qilin, Fatty 7, and Nyo Dali were following him. Nyo Dali asked, "Did you consume too much energy?" Ma Qilin said, "Of course. Brother Nyo's secret method can allow you to fight 2 levels higher than you. I'm afraid it will be very useful." Ma Yuhan also said, "How about it? What's the side effect?" Jiao Mengyue was confused. "Secret method?" Everyone nodded. "Of course. You didn't see that scene." He punched the sea and was unparalleled. Han Fei pretended to be pale and threw down a big arowana, which was exactly the fish bones of Hylianqing. Han Fei said, "This is what I hunted for you guys. I'm afraid I'll have to rest for a while." Mountain Cat tilted his head and looked at Han Fei. "Are you all right? I have some precious medicines here. They're great tonics." White Ferret also said, "Secret methods can harm your body, but you can't damage your foundation. I have a blood bead here, which can nourish your energy and restore your vitality." Han Fei suddenly said, "Well, I don't lack these resources. However, if you have fish tendons or shrimp tendons of Venerable Realm experts, why don't you give me a few?" Everyone was puzzled. "Why do you want them?" However, Ma Yuhan remembered that Zhang Wandian and the others suddenly paused during the battle. He felt a little strange at that time. Maybe it was one of Han Fei's secret methods. He said, "That's easy. I have Venerable Realm shrimp tendons. How many do you need?" Han Fei's eyes lit up. "Ha! Of course, the more the better." Generally speaking, this kind of resource was of little use except for forging battle bows. Han Fei had just slaughtered 7 Venerable Realm experts. Compared with this, a few Venerable Realm tendons were nothing. Even so, Not every venerable one that was killed would be able to become more tenacious. Therefore, after a while, he got a total of 3 tendons in the entire life and death gorge. Jiao Mengyue said, "When I return to the 10,000 Beast Island, I can find at least 5 or 6 more." Han Fei was overjoyed. "Great! Cough, cough. Well, everyone, I'm going to cultivate in seclusion for a while." Everyone understood Han Fei's decision to cultivate in seclusion. After all, Han Fei was only a peak-level junior venerable. Did he really think it was so easy for him to use the combat power of an advanced venerable? Everyone thought that the price for this was definitely not small. Therefore, when hundreds of thousands of beasts were cheering in the life and death gorge, Han Fei chose to cultivate in seclusion immediately, with Niu Dali and the others guarding outside. In fact, after Han Fei set up an array, left a trace of his aura outside, and asked Old Yuan to watch over him, he directly entered Forge the Universe. Who? In Forge the Universe, Han Fei stretched his body, and his face directly changed from pale to ruddy. He grabbed 3 tendons, which was a pretty good harvest. It was time to upgrade the void lines a little. Now, 1 day in the outside world was equivalent to 8 days in Forge the Universe. Han Fei thought, "I'm so seriously injured that I have to rest for at least a month, right? In this way, I have 8 months to digest the benefits gained from the battle just now." After quickly upgrading the void lines, it took Han Fei 3 to 5 days to completely integrate the extra soul into the golden body. However, the amount of soul this time was not very large, so the benefits it could bring to Han Fei were relatively small. Since then, Han Fei began to practice the great desolate body art. This was a body art that Han Fei used to supplement the indestructible tyrant body, and was also the advanced version of the desolate god body. 3 months later, Han Fei's strength had reached a bottleneck. Han Fei took a look at the specific information. Owner Han Fei level greater than 83, peak level junior venerable, chaotic gas 2 spiritual power 79999/79999, perception range greater than 25,000 kilometers, power greater than 3,999 waves, first spiritual heritage unknown, second spiritual heritage unknown, first spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 73. Second Spiritual Beast Emperor Sparrow, level 21, Main Art Void Fishing, level 6. Sky Stealing Technique, Venerable level, Divine Quality. His soul power had been in a state of damage when he became a venerable. Even though it had been fully recovered, it was equivalent to the level of a junior venerable. It was stuck, and after practicing the great desolate body art, his strength had increased by more than 100 waves and seemed to have reached a bottleneck. These two were at a bottleneck. No matter how he cultivated, it would be useless. It seemed that in addition to epiphany, there was only a breakthrough left. Han Fei felt that the bottleneck had been reached and he could make a breakthrough. However, Han Fei couldn't make up his mind. Because this bottleneck didn't seem to be his real limit. When it came to bottlenecks, even if one's soul and strength were to surpass the bottleneck, the results would be completely different. Thinking of this, Han Fei saw that there were still 5 months left, so he began to help disassemble the spiritual energy with the power of faith he had saved in the previous period. At the same time, he asked Little White to add another 5 wisps of chaotic gas to him. After all, the chaotic gas was really useful. It could be said that as soon as he used it, his combat power would soar. He needed to save up a little more in case of emergencies. 5 months later, Han Fei's spiritual energy disassembly rate had increased to 77%, a total increase of 2%. Among them, the power of faith had increased by more than 1%. If Han Fei had only used his power of understanding, he wouldn't have been able to disassemble even 1% of the spiritual energy after 5 months. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. The road ahead is long, and I will continue to explore. The old turtle almost wanted to kill someone when he heard this. When Han Fei appeared in the outside world, and walked out of the seal. He was surprised to see that Nyo Dali was the only one left here. Han Fei was stunned when he saw this girl. However, his expression remained the same. Han Fei said, "Thank you." Nyo Dali gave Han Fei a weird look and shook his head. "You still haven't made a breakthrough. If you still didn't come out, I would have called you out in another 3 days." Han Fei asked, "Oh? Why?" Nyo Dali said, "I'll take you to the demonic beast's holy land. Maybe you can get an opportunity to help you make a breakthrough." Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1543. The battle on the Life and Death Gorge finally came to a stop. Although Black Blood City lost 7 venerables in one day, which shocked the entire Wall of Death. However, Black Blood City indeed swallowed their anger and didn't dare to make a sound. The demon beasts only felt that Black Blood City had suffered too much and didn't dare to attack again in a short time. However, Han Fei knew that this was definitely not the only reason why Black Blood City didn't attack. Han Fei had a certain understanding of the characteristics of sea demons. When he was among them, there were many smart people there. For example, if it weren't for him, and he was only a mid-level venerable in the group battle that the half-king of the Spirit Shark requested, then, the balance of victory might directly tilt to Black Blood City. However, when Han Fei heard about the Demon Beast's Holy Land, his first reaction was, "What about the Life and Death Gorge? Aren't you afraid that Black Blood City will retaliate?" Nyo Dali said, "Don't worry about that. Paying homage to the Holy Land happened once every 5 years, and many people had been there countless times. So, it doesn't matter whether they go or not. This time, you killed 7 of them in a row. Even the old goat isn't sure whether Black Blood City will take the opportunity to attack." Therefore, another half-king realm expert came from the Myriad Beasts Island. Together with Jiao Mengyue and the Golden Tiger, there are 5 half-kings and 52 accompanying guards here. Also, most of the explorers have returned to the island, so there won't be any problems. Hearing this, Han Fei couldn't help but click his tongue. 5.5 kings? Son of AB*TCH, with this kind of strength, they could sweep away all the big families in the 1,000-star city in minutes. Han Fei couldn't help but yearn and said leisurely, "Half-king, I wonder how long it will take for me to reach the half-king realm?" The old turtle immediately complained, "What? Do you think it's slow? Even the ancient heavenly talents and divine beasts couldn't finish the venerable realm within 100 years. You're already so fast. What else do you want?" Hearing Han Fei's words, Nyo Dali couldn't help but imagine how strong Han Fei would be if he reached the half-king realm. Rumor had it that the fake Black Killer King of Black Blood City was much stronger than a demi-king and had almost ascended to the throne. However, could the Dark Killer False Monarch kill a high-rank Venerable Realm opponent when he was only at the peak of the elementary Venerable Realm? Nyo Dali did not believe it at all. Nyo Dali said, "If you can enter the depths of the Saint State, there might be such a possibility." Han Fei was stunned. Is there such a great opportunity in the Saint Realm? Nyo Dali put his hands on his hips and smiled. It is said that there is a god's inheritance there. However, no one has been able to enter the depths of the Saint Realm in the past hundreds of thousands of years. As he spoke, Nyo Dali stared at Han Fei. Veteran venerables like them had basically given up on the Sage Realm. However, Venerable Realm experts weren't the only ones who could enter the Sage Realm. Explorers and law enforcers could also enter the Sage Realm. Therefore, it was opened once every 5 years in order to see if there was anyone among the younger generation who could enter the depths of the Saint Realm and obtain the legendary inheritance. And Han Fei, as a new venerable who suddenly appeared after so many years, gave Nyo Dali a little hope. At least in her eyes, Han Fei was different. He was a unique bull in this world, as if he had fallen from the sky. As soon as Han Fei heard that, he was thrilled. It sounded very powerful. After he reached the Venerable Realm, Han Fei finally understood why there were so many secret realms in the world. because ordinary secret realms were not enough to attract the Venerable's interest. Actually, one only needed to take a look at most of the secret realms to know what grade they were. Basically, the high-level secret realms had been excavated and explored by someone. For example, Han Fei could get the embroidery needle and Snowmorn. God knew if it was a coincidence or for other reasons. Therefore, when Yo Dali mentioned the Sage Realm, Han Fei knew that an opportunity had come. On the Beast Island, when Han Fei returned, he found that the number of demonic beasts on the Beast Island had skyrocketed. Most of them were at the Explorer level. Han Fei and Yo Dali came directly to the Great Rift Gorge. This was where the Venerables lived. Ordinary explorers didn't have the chance to come here. At this moment, a barbecue party was going on the Great Rift Gorge. Since Han Fei gave these demonic beasts a taste of barbecue. Basically, there was barbecue here every day. It was just a matter of the size of the barbecue area. When Han Fei and Yo Dali returned, someone immediately shouted, "Hey! Brother Nyo is back?" Oh, Ma Qilin jumped over and warmly invited, "Brother Nyo, have you recovered from your injuries?" Fat 7 scoffed. Bulsh *T. Look at Brother Nyo. Does he look like he has any problems? Han Fei slightly cupped his hands. Thank you for your concern. Some of the sequelae have been recovered. They don't affect me at all. Someone seemed to have returned from the Forest of Horrors and couldn't help but smile. Is this Brother Nyo Demon King? The news of you killing 7 Venerables in 3 battles has spread throughout the Forest of Horrors. Many people wanted to come back to see you, but you managed to make it in time for the pilgrimage to the Holy Land. So, most of them are staying here. Han Fei said, "You've worked hard day and night to resist the enemies." Mad Lion laughed. "No matter how hard you work, no one can beat you." Lightning said, "Brother Nyo, hurry up and eat. The barbecue is still hot." Then Lightning shouted, "Where's the wine? Get a few jars of wine for Brother Nyo." Coming, Han Fei smiled heartily. "Since you've invited me so kindly, I'll drink with you." Han Fei, Ma Qilin, Fat 7, Crocodile Tai, and the burly woman, Xiang Tantan, ate until their mouths were full of oil. In fact, it wasn't until just now that Han Fei knew that Xiang Tantan was also a demi-king. But he had just played finger-guessing games with him. It could only be said that on the 10,000 Beast Island, the level of one's realm didn't particularly affect the development of relationships. Of course, the premise was that you had to be a venerable. If you were only an explorer, you definitely wouldn't be able to participate in this kind of party. When you reached the venerable realm, there was generally no such thing as age. Except for the kind of people who were highly respected, such as old sheep, they didn't get along with anyone. After half a day of fun, Han Fei suddenly felt a perception fall on him. He turned his head and found that 3,000 kilometers away, Old Sheep was standing on the cliff on the other side of the Great Rift Gorge, looking at them. Han Fei patted Ma Qilin's shoulder and said, "You guys drink first." Following Han Fei's gaze, they knew that Old Sheep must have something to say to Han Fei, so no one stopped him. After a moment, when Han Fei came to the edge of the cliff, Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Old Sheep, why don't you go and eat something?" Old Sheep smiled and said, "Generally speaking, sheep like to eat grass. Those guys eat fish and meat every day. I really don't like it." Then Old Sheep glanced at Han Fei. "Bull Demon King, how long do you think we can go out?" Han Fei was slightly taken aback and couldn't help but look at Old Sheep. "Go out? Where to?" Old Sheep smiled and said, "To a world where humans live in the sky and travel by flying boat every day. Or something else. What do you think?" Han Fei's eyelids twitched. What does Old Sheep mean? Fuck, could it be that he had divined this from the heavens? Seeing Han Fei's expression, Old Sheep smiled. "It's nothing to be surprised about. We were born in a cage, but it doesn't mean we can only stay in this cage forever. It's like you're still closer to the beasts after 100,000 years." Han Fei's lips twitched. What do you mean? Old Sheep chuckled. 100,000 years. The ancestor of that generation had long since perished. However, some stories will always be passed down. After all, this place is very small, don't you think? Wang Han. Hiss. Han Fei immediately narrowed his eyes and put away his expression. He looked at Old Sheep solemnly. Who are you? Old Sheep's head was still facing the Great Rift Gorge, and he said slowly, speaking of which, I don't know whether I am your senior or your junior. However, my ancestor was born in the 100,000 mountains. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Yang Qingu? Old Sheep stared at Han Fei for a long time and then heaved a sigh. So, the ancestor of that generation was called Yang Qingu. When Han Fei was in the 100,000 mountains, he had indeed met a goat. That was the first goat that he and Shiman Linglan met. However, he didn't know its strength or name at that time. Later, when he was studying in the 100,000 mountains, he learned about this goat. However, he was a loner and lived in a cave on the mountain wall all year round. He seemed to be studying carving skills and recording something. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, How did you recognize me? Yang Shinji smiled. You finally admitted it. In fact, when you used the 100 Battles Divine Hammer, I vaguely noticed that. I've watched every one of your battles. You know the Body of War, the Heavenly Void Divine Walking Technique, and the Star Shifting Technique. Yang Shinji looked at Han Fei. You know the secret techniques of the War Giants and the Heavenly Blue Giants. Then you should know the Beast King technique of the beasts, right? Although you haven't used them yet, you should know the Monkey King 3000 strikes and the 100 Beast soul-suppressing roar, right? A bitter smile appeared on Han Fei's face. If I have a combat skill, I have to use it. Could it be that everyone recognized me? Yang Shinji shook his head. Of course not. If you used the Monkey King 3000 strikes, the ape demon should be able to recognize you. As he spoke, Yang Shinji continued, When you finished fighting those 100 battles, I understood in my heart. You are the legendary Wang Han, but I didn't expect that you would be born in this era 100,000 years later. Han Fei shrugged. It's not up to me what era I'm born in. I can't do anything about it. Yang Shinji said, So, you are not from the Demon Subduing Tower, nor are you from the Water Buffalo clan. You are a human from the outside world. Since you can come in, I think, you must have a way to get out. Then, Yang Shinji stared at Han Fei, waiting for his answer. Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1544. Han Fei thought that his disguise was flawless. Who knew that he had already been exposed? He had mistakenly thought that no one knew about it. Facing Yang Shinji's question, Han Fei said lightly, If I have to go out, the most I can do now is to take a few people there. But their realms can't be too high. Han Fei looked up at the sky and then around. Old Yang, in the outside world, this place is called the Wall of Death. Everyone thinks that there are countless dangers hidden here. In fact, it's indeed dangerous here. I was just lucky and happened to appear in the territory of the Demon Beast Alliance. This means that even venerables can't survive if they appear in the wrong place, such as Black Blood City or the Forest of Horrors. Old Yang was listening to Han Fei quietly. Han Fei continued, About hundreds of years ago, Black Blood City found that the seal of the Wall of Death in some places had become weak. So, the Black Killer Snail King began to make arrangements. Until 3 years ago, or a few years earlier, they opened the first way out. Hiss, Old Yang was shocked. The people of Black Blood City can go out? Han Fei shook his head. It's very difficult. With the strength of Black Blood City, it took several years and a lot of resources, but they only sent a dozen venerables over. They didn't even have a demi-king. The strongest one is a peak-level venerable named Chao Xian. You should know him, right? The old goat took a deep breath. No wonder I couldn't divine this person when I tried to divine Chao Xian a few years ago. I thought his strength had reached the half-monarch realm and avoided my divination. What else? Han Fei said. Later, I launched a battle with the human venerables and killed those venerables from Black Blood City. Only then did the Wall of Death attract my attention. So, I searched the Wall of Death for thousands of kilometers and finally found a place where the seal was weak. Old Yang immediately asked, "Where is it?" Han Fei said with a smile, "It's just a gap. It's hard for me to come through. You and most people on the Beast Island can forget about it for the time being." Han Fei said leisurely, "This time, I can come in, which means that the seal of the Wall of Death is weakening," the old goat said. "I don't want the beasts and sea demons to wait until the cage weakens and collapses." Han Fei said with a smile, "Trust me, it won't be long. My guess is that even now, experts should be able to tear a corner of the cage. But we can't do that." "Why?" "If you were proficient in arrays, old goat, you would know that when something goes wrong in one place, it will immediately accelerate the problems in other places. If there were too many problems, the formation would naturally collapse. If we tear open a corner of the cage now, the consequences will be unimaginable. Have you thought about the consequences when the people of Black Blood City and the Forest of Terror escape?" The old goat remained silent for a moment before saying, "When do you think we can leave?" After a long silence, Han Fei said unhurriedly, "Wait for me. When I grow up, when I become a half-king, or when I become a king." The old goat was about to speak when Han Fei added, 100 years. 100 years? Old goat was dumbfounded. He really knew how to brag. You're only a junior peak-level venerable. Even if you have the power to fight beyond your level, you can't become a king. Even if you're a peerless heavenly talent, it's still a question whether you can reach the mid-level peak-level venerable in 100 years. As if knowing that the old goat didn't believe him, Han Fei said with a smile, "Old goat, I'm 28 years old this year." "Pooh!" The old goat was so shocked that he almost fell to the ground. The old goat looked at Han Fei in shock. "How old are you?" Han Fei sighed gloomily. "In the blink of an eye, I'm not young anymore. I'm almost 30 BM." In the next second, Han Fei was kicked hundreds of kilometers away. On the other side of the Great Rift Gorge, the venerables who were still stuffing themselves with food were all stunned, and their laughter and chatting came to an abrupt stop. The old goat said, "Keep eating." "I tried to matchmake him, but he didn't want to." Nyodali frowned when he heard that. "Old goat is too much. I'm not in such a hurry anymore." "It's not good to push him too hard, is it?" Ma Qilin said leisurely. "Tisk tsk, brother Nyo doesn't know how lucky he is." Smack! Crocodile Tai slapped him. "What do you know? You should think about which wife you should find now." Shui Ling what do you think? As soon as Crocodile Tai said that, an ice spear pierced his butt, and a water Qilin tilted its head and said, "Crocodile Tai, are you itching for a beating?" On this side, it was a mess again. The matter of Han Fei being kicked away by the old goat had been forgotten by everyone for a while. At this moment, Han Fei had already flown back with a bitter look on his face. "Why did you kick me?" The old goat said angrily, "Be nice next time. Are you sure you're 28 this year? I know, you didn't stay long in the Age of Doom, right?" Han Fei was stunned for a moment. "Does that count? If that counts, then this year. F***ck, I'm already 77 years old. Am I an old man now?" BM on the opposite side, the noise quieted down again. Because Han Fei flew away again. Mad Lion sighed. "It seems that the old goat is very persistent." Lightning said leisurely, "It seems that Brother Nyo is also very stubborn." Nyo Dolly blushed and snorted at Nyo Kursin and Ni Panpan. "Let's go home and cultivate. You two must become a venerable in 100 years, or I'll break your legs." Nyo Kursin and Nyo Panpan's faces turned green. "Wait, what does this have to do with us?" On the other side of the Great Rift Gorge, Han Fei flew back again. Hey, old goat, let's talk nicely. Don't get physical, okay?" The old goat said, "Then let's make it 100 years. Since you have appeared, I believe that since you can make the 100,000 mountains teach you a unique skill, you won't let us down." Han Fei smiled. "Of course. But I have a question, old goat." Han Fei's expression slightly changed. "Are there any war giants left?" The Beast Clan, the Sky Clan, and the Demonic Plant Clan all had creatures. Only the war giants, Han Fei had not seen any traces of their existence in any place so far. Asked by Han Fei, the old goat shook his head slightly. The war giants, because of the fall of the Giant King, many of them died in many subsequent expeditions. Later, they sailed east with the divine boat and never heard from again. At least, in this cage, there was no existence of the war giant tribe. I'm sure of this. Went east. Han Fei let out a long sigh of relief. As long as they weren't all wiped out. He had to leave some descendants. He just didn't know what happened to those who went east in the end. After confirming the 100-year period, Old Goat was a lot more relaxed at that time. He saw the hope of going out. Although the cage was big, it was still a cage. Besides, the environment here was quite harsh. No one would like it here. Most of Old Goat's knowledge came from the ancient jade inheritance left in the Age of Doom. Besides, the Beast Island was only so big, and generations of demonic beasts lived there. The older demonic beasts would tell stories to the younger demonic beasts, and it would always be the same stories. In fact, Old Goat didn't know much. However, only the records about the 100,000 great mountains had been passed down through the ages by chance. Han Fei chatted with Old Goat, but he didn't get anything out of it, because he basically already knew everything that Old Goat knew. He asked him who Shiman Linglan was, but this guy only knew that Shiman Linglan was the governor of the City of Justice. Other than that, he didn't know anything else. After they started talking about this topic, Old Goat said, "I was going to ask Nyo Dolly to call you out. But since you came out of seclusion, it's just right. You have to go and have a look at the Beast Clan's Saint Land. That place has existed for too long. My grandfather's grandfather's grandfather. Anyway, since a long time ago, no one has been able to enter the depths of the Saint Land. No one knows what's hidden inside. But you are different. You may have experienced that era and influenced that era." Han Fei was confused about the Saint Land. At least, when he was in the 100,000 mountains, he had never heard of the Saint Land. Or maybe someone built this place later on. Of course, Old Goat wouldn't reveal Han Fei's identity right now. After all, it was too bizarre and heartbreaking for him. Nyo Dolly finally met a fellow clansman, and he was looking forward to it. Old Goat thought, so what if you're a human? So what if you're a cow? It's not like I can't transform into a human. In terms of appearance, Nyo Dolly is not much worse than a human woman. In fact, it's possible. 3 days later. On the 10,000 Beast Island, there were constant roars. Han Fei practiced the Great Desolate Body technique for 3 days. Although it was useless and couldn't help him break through the current bottleneck, it was at least a try. Early in the morning, Nyo Dolly woke up Han Fei and led Nyo Kursin and Nyo Panpan to the Holy Land. Nyo Dolly said, "The Saint Land of demonic beasts is not dangerous at all. Occasionally, some people will encounter some small opportunities inside. However, there are no rules for that kind of opportunity and it only happens occasionally. Kursin, Panpan, and I have gone in many times, but we haven't encountered anything. We can only rely on you. Maybe there will be the inheritance of the ancestor of our Buffalo clan." Han Fei thought, "You're the ancestor of the Buffalo clan? He helped me fight. Just because of this relationship, I can't date you." "How many generations have passed since then?" Han Fei nodded. "If there is a chance, I will definitely pay attention to it." Third. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1545. The so-called Holy Land of Demonic Beasts was on the Beast Island. Although Han Fei hadn't traveled all over the Beast Island, he had sensed it with his soul. Han Fei didn't find anything unusual before, But today, Han Fei found that on a very flat open space in front of a cliff on the Beast Island, all kinds of demonic beasts had gathered here. Among them, Han Fei couldn't recognize many of the demonic beasts. There were leopards emitting blue and white flames, foxes with wings, pythons with fluffy hair, and wild boars with long feathers and big horns. Han Fei tried to identify them one by one, but he couldn't tell them apart. They were very different from the beasts Han Fei had seen in the Age of Doom. Maybe this was the result of the evolution of the times. New species were born, and the old species died in the long river of history. When Han Fei and Niu Dali arrived, almost all the venerables on the island were in place. There were 88 of them in total. Han Fei frowned. There were more than a dozen venerables less than before. Since these venerables weren't going to the Life and Death Gorge, they must be going to the Forest of Horrors. Han Fei didn't care about this. However, when he and Niu Dali appeared, a roar broke out in the beast tide. Look, the one next to Venerable Vigorous must be the Bull Demon King. Wow. I heard that the Bull Demon King's bloodline is so magical that he can transform into a human being. Now that I've seen you today, you really live up to your reputation. He killed 7 venerables in 3 battles. The Bull Demon King has established his position as the strongest junior venerable. Once he makes a breakthrough, his strength will be greatly increased. Han Fei immediately attracted the attention of countless demonic beasts. Many people's faces were full of admiration. To Han Fei's surprise, he felt a trace of power of hope. Han Fei was shocked. What's going on? When he was on the Scattered Stars Island, he didn't feel the supply of power of hope. However, on this Beast Island, only 1,000,000 demonic beasts could see him. Most of these demonic beasts definitely didn't believe in him. So, where did the power of hope come from? For a moment, Han Fei was a little confused. Niu Dali asked, "What's wrong?" Han Fei landed and said leisurely, "It's just that I've never seen so many demonic beasts gather." Old Goat glanced at Han Fei indifferently, thinking, this guy is really good at lying through his teeth. A few people who were familiar with Han Fei immediately came over. Ma Qilin said, "Brother Niu, this is the first time you've come to visit the Saint Land. Maybe you will have a chance." Crocodile Tai sighed. Whether it was a fortuitous encounter or not, there was no need to take it to heart. Even if you enter the tomb of myriad beasts, don't go any deeper unless you feel a calling in your heart. Han Fei frowned slightly. This sounded like a graveyard. Why did he say it was a sacred land? Seeing his expression, Crocodile Tai immediately explained, when the powerhouses of the past knew that they were doomed to fall, most of them would go there, hoping to pass on their skills. Demon beasts inheritance. However, according to the history of the Demon-Beast Alliance, the Myriad Beast Burial Ground wasn't originally for the purpose of passing down our heritage. It was said that there were secrets hidden inside, and it was waiting for someone who could enter the depths of the Myriad Beast Burial Ground. Ma Qilin said, "Unfortunately, this person has never appeared. Venerables like us usually don't have any chance. But even so, our exploration of the depths of the 10,000 Beast Tomb has never stopped." Han Fei nodded slightly. It was because of this mystery that he was interested in it. Unlike others, he had the nautical multiverse. If there was no way, he could find a way out. If he couldn't find a way, he could use the 9-Palace Destiny Ruler to change his luck. At this moment, Old Yang's voice echoed in the sky, "Everyone, be quiet." When the buzzing gradually subsided and disappeared, the old goat said, "All beast brethren, the quinquennial worship ceremony is about to arrive. The Saint Land will be reopened. Some people will get opportunities from it, and some people are destined to get nothing. But these are not important. What's important is that I have a mysterious premonition in my divination today." While talking, Old Yang glanced at Han Fei and the other venerables. However, it didn't deliberately stop on someone. However, Han Fei knew that Old Yang was looking at him. Everyone knew that old Yang was good at divination. Was it normal for him to have a premonition? However, old Yang said, I have a hunch that we may find a way to leave the cage within 100 years. Wow. What? Leave the cage? In an instant, everyone was in an uproar. All the venerables and explorers were in an uproar. Next to Han Fei, Crocodile Tai, Ma Qilin, Niu Dali. Everyone exclaimed. Mad Lion was shocked. Old Yang, don't lie to me. Do you really have such a hunch? Elephant Taunton roared. Old Yang, are you sure it's within 100 years? Crocodile Tai exclaimed. Finally have a chance to leave? Quiet, Old Yang shouted several times. When the beasts quieted down, he said leisurely, What I said is just a hunch. It's just a possibility, but not absolute. My hunch is that in these 100 years, there may be some changes in the cage. Maybe a demon star will appear out of nowhere and save the beast race, but it doesn't mean we can definitely get out. A demon star? Many people began to guess what old Yang meant. However, more people were just happy, as if something called hope that had been sealed in their hearts for a long time was burning again. When he saw the demonic beast, he was so excited that he knew why the old sheep told him about it. After all, these beasts had been locked up for too long, and they needed hope too much. The environment of the cage was extremely poor, and the living space was also limited. Countless beasts lived here just to continue the descendants of their race. Every day, except for cultivation and fighting, there was nothing else to do. Now, old Yang brought hope to everyone. Regardless of whether this hope was real or not, there was only 100 years left. Everyone could wait and see. However, when old Yang said this, Han Fei felt a lot of pressure. He said within 100 years because Han Fei felt that he could grow up in 100 years. But in fact, Han Fei certainly knew that it was not easy to grow up easily after reaching the Venerable Realm. When he entered the Venerable Realm, he had already discovered this. Take this 1,000-beast island for example. He had fought fiercely with hundreds of venerables in a row, slaughtered more than 1 or 2 venerables, and had more than one life-and-death battle. Although he seemed to have reached a bottleneck in strength, Han Fei firmly believed that there was still room for growth in this realm. His growth in just a few years was actually comparable to the growth process of most venerables in hundreds of years. After all, how many venerables had a treasure like the demon purification pot? How many venerables could change the flow of time? How many venerables could find hundreds of venerables as sparring partners at any time and place? In fact, Han Fei was confident because of Forge the Universe. But after changing the time of Forge the Universe, he could have more time to grow. After watching the countless beasts vent their emotions, old Yang smiled and said leisurely, You? Just wait. What will come will come. Now, let's enter the Saint Realm in order. Venerables first, explorers second, and the rest even more. Within an hour, if you don't find an opportunity, come out immediately. Otherwise, you will be lost. When old Yang said this, Crocodile Tai also said to Han Fei, By the way, you have to remember this. After entering the Saint Realm, if you don't feel the summons or other opportunities within an hour, you must leave. If you come out at this time, you can still find the way back. But if you don't come back after an hour, you may get lost. Han Fei wondered, Will there be danger? Niu Dali said, There is no danger. You will just get lost in an unknown barrier. Many venerables have tried to stay in it and not come out, but when the next Saint Realm opens, they can still walk out. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Venerables can't explore this place? Ma Qilin shook his head. Yes. My father once did this. He was already a half-king and stayed in it for 5 years. After he came out, he said that he was completely lost in the past 5 years, as if he had walked into a world of nothingness. He didn't even see a beast tomb. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. A place where even a half-king could get lost. Didn't it mean that this 10,000 beast tomb had reached the king level? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Well, may I ask, how long will this Saint Realm be open in total? Nyo Dali explained, the channel will only be open for 3 days. If you don't come out within 3 days, the Saint Realm will be closed. But if you don't come out after an hour, you won't be able to come out for the next 3 days. But you don't have to worry too much about the dangers inside. Although some people have encountered dangers, they are usually not fatal. So, even if you can't come out, don't panic. Just wait for 5 years. Han Fei thought to himself, 5 years is such a long time. How can I afford to wait? I can leave the Scattered Stars Island for 1 or 2 years, but if I leave for 5 or 10 years, many people on the Scattered Stars Island will forget me. When Old Yang finished speaking, the mountain began to shake. The huge rock wall began to twist, and there seemed to be a water-like membrane on it, as if it could be poked through. Ma Qilin said, Brother Nyo, let's go. First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1546. Han Fei had visited secret realms countless times. But this time, it seemed to be the strongest. After all, he hadn't encountered a place that could make a half-king get lost before. Many venerables swaggered in, their figures disappearing into the seal on the rock wall. Just now, after hearing Old Goat's words, many people were a little excited. Therefore, when these demonic beasts walked in, they all looked quite valiant and high-spirited. It seemed that the opening of the Saint Realm this time was different from before. When Han Fei walked into the cliff, the scene in front of him suddenly became very vast. There was a shallow white mist here, but the visibility was not very low. At least, from the perspective of a venerable, he could see very far. However, even so, Han Fei found that his perception was blocked. After all, what he could see was limited. How could it be as far as perception? In the Saint Realm, in addition to the feeling of vastness, there was also a strong dead air. There was no need to identify the direction at all. Han Fei knew that there should be a tomb in front of him on the left. Han Fei said, Old Yuan, with your soul power, can you see this place clearly? Old Turtle said leisurely, No. I just have a high soul realm. However, just because my realm is high doesn't mean that I can ignore the forbidden soul domain. Before you came in, you should have guessed that this secret realm is not low level, right? Han Fei clicked his tongue. Old Yuan, as I get stronger and stronger, you don't seem to be strong enough anymore. Old Turtle. Han Fei walked dozens of kilometers with a step, not fast. He could perceive that other venerables appeared around him. It could be seen that after coming in through the entrance of the cliff, everyone appeared nearby. Fat Seven happened to see Han Fei and waved. Brother Nyo, do you want to go with me? Let me tell you about it? Han Fei shook his head slightly. No need. Old Goat said that I should see this place from the perspective of a newcomer. In fact, Old Goat certainly didn't say such words. This was just an excuse for Han Fei not to go with others. Generally speaking, no one would go to the Old Goat to ask about this matter. Even if they asked, since Old Goat knew Han Fei's identity, he would cover it up for Han Fei. Sure enough, when Fatty Seven heard this, he immediately said seriously, Then go by yourself. At the same time, Fatty Seven shouted, Everyone, don't give Brother Nyo any guidance. Let Brother Nyo see the saint's state from the perspective of a newcomer. Fatty Seven's roar actually broke through some of the fog and emitted a pale blue light. Immediately after that, Han Fei heard an exclamation. Ma Qilin was the first to respond. Following that, many voices were heard. Got it. All right. Understood. Han Fei thought to himself, this pig really knows how to do things. Han Fei was also surprised that there were so many venerables in the mist nearby. This was the result of perception being ineffective, Fat Seven said. By the way, Brother Nyo, if you need help here, remember to shout loudly. Otherwise, if his voice was too soft, it would be absorbed by the fog. Once I'm a little further away, I might not be able to hear it. Han Fei smiled. Okay. Han Fei walked past Fat Seven and quickly headed towards the grave on the left. Sure enough, after a while, he saw many earth slopes, rising and falling one after another. However, in addition to the earth slopes, there were also many skeletons, most of which only had white bones left. According to the bones, Han Fei could judge that as long as these creatures were not buried, their realms would not be very high. The strongest ones were only explorers, and they were not even semi-venerables. Many of them seemed to be new explorers. Roar, woo, here, the fog was surging and there was wind. In the wind, there were some beast roars from time to time. They didn't seem to be real roars, but shallow roars brought by the wind from another world. Han Fei frowned slightly. There seemed to be some souls here. However, these souls were far from the level of immortal heroic souls. It seemed that they were just a kind of thought, entrusted to this world, occasionally echoing in the wind. Without immortal heroic souls, there was naturally no danger. Han Fei walked all the way forward and walked at least 2,000 or 3,000 kilometers. He found that whether he walked horizontally or vertically, there were desolate graves and corpses everywhere. Han Fei was very sure that he didn't get lost. He could clearly remember that on the way he came, those skeletons were scattered differently. Han Fei deliberately walked back for a while, and found that he could also go back here. So, there was no such thing as getting lost. 100 seconds later, Han Fei saw thousands of demon beasts in the explorer level running wildly in the wilderness made of the desolate tomb. When these demonic beasts saw Han Fei, they would basically shout, "Venerable Nyo." Seeing the hordes of demonic beasts rushing in from behind, Han Fei realized that he was too slow. In fact, it was already very fast for him to walk more than 3,000 kilometers in 100 minutes. However, it was obvious that this place was still far from the so-called depths of the Saint Land. Therefore, Han Fei also ran as fast as he could. After about 10 minutes, when Han Fei walked about 8,000 kilometers, the surrounding situation began to change. Suddenly, there began to be coercion in the world, and this was the coercion of the Venerable Realm. At first, this coercion was not very strong. However, after walking another 2,000 kilometers, Han Fei learned that, except for a few talented demon beasts, the explorer-level demon beasts basically couldn't come in anymore. At this moment, Han Fei finally understood why most of the demon beasts he saw outside were explorers. There were basically not many below the explorer's level. It must be because of this coercion. When Han Fei saw a desolate grave, the grave was not unusual, but there was a wolf shadow sitting on the grave. When Han Fei came over, the wolf shadow even glanced at Han Fei. Han Fei frowned. "Old Yuan, is this also a soul body? Why don't I feel any soul power?" The old turtle said, "Strictly speaking, this is not a soul body. You can understand it as a remnant of consciousness born from the fusion of soul and will. Generally speaking, these remnants of consciousness have no memory, and most of the time, they are very confused. After a certain time, they will gradually dissipate between heaven and earth. What you see now shows that this guy may not have died for a long time." Han Fei grunted and said leisurely, "I always feel that they died too casually. A dignified venerable should leave behind endless treasures and scatter them between heaven and earth." The old turtle said, "Every race has its own long-cherished wish. For example, many people of my turtle clan fall asleep and then die. This kind of way of dying is actually not bad." Han Fei saw about 2 or 3 situations like this wolf shadow. However, the deeper he went into the saint realm, the hotter Han Fei felt. The current environment was obviously similar to the environment when he just came in. But why did he feel hot? Han Fei looked inside and found that there was nothing wrong with his body. Suddenly, Han Fei sensed that a tomb not far away quaked. Han Fei walked over curiously to take a look. However, when Han Fei stood in front of this grave, the grave began to shake slightly. If he remembered correctly, Nyo Dali and the others all said that venerable powerhouses generally didn't have any opportunities in the saint realm, right? Han Fei thought of something and the nine-palace ruler of destiny appeared in his hand. As Han Fei added his spiritual energy to his body, the ruler of destiny appeared and began to quickly float among the fortunes. When the nine-palace ruler of destiny fell on the character Ji, Han Fei smiled slightly. It seems that something good is going to happen. Is this grave in front of me a good thing? In this case, Han Fei was not happy. The tombs here were everywhere. The depths of the saint realm that the old goat mentioned were obviously not here, right? There must be someone who could reach here. So, Han Fei stretched out his hand, and a wisp of chaotic energy fell on the nine-palace ruler of destiny. Han Fei grinned. Change luck. There were two ways to use the nine-palace ruler of destiny: changing luck and changing luck. The method of changing luck was to change one's current luck, and changing luck was to change one's luck by force. In the face of a secret realm of this level, Han Fei, of course, directly paid the money and changed his luck by force. The ruler of the nine-palace ruler of destiny floated for a while, and then it turned into an auspicious sign. As soon as the fortune changed, Han Fei immediately felt a vague call from the bottom of his heart. The call was still in the depth. This time, Han Fei had no scruples. In a few minutes, Han Fei had traveled more than 6,000 kilometers. The pressure on his body had reached the peak level of the venerable realm. However, the pressure was useless for Han Fei's half-king body. It was just that his soul was a little suppressed. But none of these things mattered. Han Fei suddenly stopped, not because he had reached the place, but because he found that it was raining in front of him. In the rain, the wind was whistling. However, the strange thing was that he was only 1 meter away from the rain curtain, but he couldn't feel anything. There was even no rain flowing over. Fuse! The yin-yang divine eyes appeared. Han Fei saw that there was a mysterious mist between the raindrops. A barrier? Han Fei put his hand in, and the feeling of the falling raindrops was no different. Immediately, Han Fei used the Gemini divine technique, and the white mist body stepped directly into the rain. But in the next moment, in the eyes of the black mist body, the white mist body actually went in and came out. Ha! It's just a formation. With a thought, Han Fei directly used the star's passage technique. In the next moment, Han Fei had already entered the formation and didn't walk out of the barrier like the last time. Whoo! Han Fei took a deep breath, and the power contained in the rain barrier was gathering into his body. However, the natural dripping of the rain didn't change at all. Han Fei removed the Gemini divine technique and looked around with the yin-yang divine eyes, only to find that there was no way around. Suddenly, Han Fei understood that most of the venerables were actually trapped in this place and couldn't enter. The dense fog might be enchanting, but the curtain of rain was the true obstacle. Here, there seemed to be no concept of distance, nor the concept of land. Even Han Fei couldn't feel the passage of time. All Han Fei could feel was the wind and rain. However, Han Fei found that his body was hotter, and the call in his heart was stronger. When Han Fei looked inside again, he found that there seemed to be a mysterious power overflowing in his blood. That was the aura of the essence blood of the god of war. Wow! Essence blood of the god of war? Could it be that the thing inside is related to the god of war? Second, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1547. Han Fei didn't know that the essence blood of the god of war had not been completely refined and dissolved by him. In his essence blood, there was still a trace of the essence blood of the god of war. If it weren't for entering this saint realm, Han Fei wouldn't have found this problem. God knew if it was a hidden danger or not. Han Fei said, "Old Yuan, is there any problem with my essence blood?" The old turtle said, "There shouldn't be any problem. The reason why you haven't been able to refine it completely should be because of your realm and strength. Your strength is not enough to digest the power of this essence blood. After all, this is the Emperor blood. Only by constantly becoming stronger and changing the strength of your bloodline can you finally fully absorb the Emperor blood." Han Fei smiled. Now, there's a problem with the Emperor blood. Although there was a problem with the essence blood of the god of war, Han Fei wasn't too worried. After all, the Nine-Palace ruler of destiny said great luck, which was his current luck. Since he couldn't find the way or see the array, there were only two ways. Han Fei cancelled the fusion and let Little Black and Little White appear. Han Fei said to Little White, "Daughter, look around. Are there any great benefits here? Help me find a way out." Little White blinked her big eyes and turned around several times in a row. "Dad, I can't feel it." Han Fei frowned slightly. He didn't immediately use the nautical panorama. After all, the nautical panorama could do a lot of things. As for himself, he only had 2 hours. If he could go to the depths of this saint realm, maybe the nautical panorama would be of great use. But now Han Fei had to use it. Putting away Little Black and Little White, Han Fei stretched out his hand and the nautical panorama appeared in his hand. Soon, the nautical panorama pointed out a direction. Moreover, this direction was constantly changing. Oh, is it an invisible array? Han Fei was surprised. Since this way of walking was rhythmic and regular, this barrier still couldn't escape the concept of an array. However, the realm of this array was so high that he couldn't see it, touch it, or estimate it at all. Han Fei secretly noted that in this demonic beast saint realm, this barrier itself was also a treasure. If he was strong enough in the future, he could come back to take a look. Let's see if I can walk out of the barrier with my own strength? At this point, Han Fei's speed became very fast. The nautical panorama was constantly changing, so it couldn't be considered to have been used many times. After turning more than 300 directions and walking for less than 100 kilometers, Han Fei walked out of the rain curtain barrier with a pop. At this moment, there was no mist or rain in Han Fei's eyes, but a grassland. However, on this grassland, an altar attracted Han Fei's attention. Han Fei was stunned when he saw the altar. Is this the war god altar? Feeling the heat of his blood, Han Fei already knew what this place was. The altar of the war giants? Could it be that this mystic realm was once the territory of the war giants? Han Fei stepped into the air and looked around, but he didn't see the giant king city. This made Han Fei a little uncertain. Perhaps this was just an altar built by later generations. After all, there had been too many wars in the 100,000 mountains. Maybe the giant king city had already collapsed in the war. Outside the 4 corners of the war god altar, there were several piles of bonfire wood, but no fire was lit. Han Fei scratched his head. Was he going to worship? Obviously, the purpose of the existence of this altar was for people to worship. On the altar, there were 2 square bronze tripods, but there was nothing in them. Han Fei still remembered that there was to be a flame there. When the flame formed a curtain, an oracle would appear. The old turtle couldn't help saying, "Ha! An altar?" Han Fei suddenly chuckled. "Old Yuan, do you believe that the gods are still alive?" The old turtle trembled in Han Fei's heart. "Impossible. The age of gods has ended and the gods have fallen." "Oh? Really?" Clatter. Han Fei snapped his fingers, and 4 bonfires were ignited, and the 2 bronze tripods on the altar also burned. Since the bonfire wood existed, they couldn't just burn nothing, could they? They had to put on a show, right? So, Han Fei set up a grill next to the bonfire. There were grilled fish, old lobsters, empty clams, sea cucumbers. Anyway, he just roasted a bunch of them. Immediately afterward, Han Fei stood on the altar and recalled a little. Then, he put a finger between his eyebrows, leaned forward, raised his neck, and chanted. The great god of war, the 100,000 mountains, the eyes of the earth, the ancient waves, in the distant Blackstone city's eyes, the holy city of giants looks down. I pray for the triumph of war. I pray for the safety of my king. 3 Pray for the warriors to return to their homeland. IV Pray for the mountains to never be destroyed. May you listen to the pious prayers of your people. May your glory be eternal. Please given. Oracle, although the 100,000 mountains, the Blackstone city, and the city of giants were gone, and even this kind of prayer seemed to be gone. However, Han Fei felt that this might let the god of war know that someone was still calling him. As a result, Han Fei waited for a long time. From time to time, Han Fei looked back and found that there were no pillars of fire rising at all. Is it wrong? Is the wording wrong, or is the method of sacrifice wrong? After a while, Han Fei waved his hands and placed the corpses of a few semi-venerable puppets near the 4 bonfires. He helped them put their fingers to the center of their eyebrows, leaned forward, and raised their neck. Then, Han Fei threw thousands of explorer corpses and sat cross-legged under the altar one by one. Then, after thinking for a long time, Han Fei shouted again. The great god of war, the belief of the war giants, the eyes of the earth, the ancient waves, in a cage sealed for eternity under the sincere expectation of the countless beasts on the beast island. I pray for the giants to never be destroyed. I pray for the beast clan to find a safe place. I pray for all the sea monsters to be killed. I pray for Han Fei to become a king. May you listen to the pious prayers of your people. May your glory be eternal. Please give an oracle. Han Fei thought to himself. This wording should be able to be changed. After all, the giants used to worship in this way. At that time, they were still fighting. Therefore, the part of the prayer was based on that war. Han Fei thought to himself, I've run out of words. If it still doesn't work, I'll have to dig up the altar. After waiting for 2 or 3 minutes, Han Fei turned his head to look back, only to hear a whoosh, and the flames behind him soared high. On the screen of flames, a few twisted words were written. You're really shameless. Han Fei. Han Fei immediately took a breath. F***ck. You're still here? Han Fei thought to himself, damn it, it's been 100,000 years. Isn't the god of war old? Maybe he has died of old age. However, the god of war responded to his random sacrificial speech. A line of words quickly appeared on the curtain of flames. I am not the faith of the beasts. When Han Fei saw these words, he was stunned on the spot. Han Fei remembered what the giant king once said. He said that if the god of war was in a good state, he could chat with the god of war. Before, Han Fei thought it was nonsense. Now seeing the god of war's typing speed, Han Fei completely believed it. Han Fei hurriedly said, Senior god of war, I, Han Fei, am Wang Han. In the age of doom, in the 100,000 mountains, you even told my fortune. Now, after 100,000 years, the war giants have disappeared, and the beasts are trapped in cages and suffering. The sea demons are wreaking havoc and wreaking havoc. Senior, do you have any solution? The curtain of flames quickly replied, It's better to rely on you than on me. Han Fei was speechless. Hey no. If I rely on you, why is your altar still here? The curtain of flames replied, I don't know who set it up. Han Fei was dumbfounded. F***ck, isn't this a trap? So, after all this, I'm just looking for a useless altar? Han Fei immediately said, Senior god of war. No matter what, you should at least give me some hints or benefits. The beasts have been working hard for 100,000 years, trying to enter this secret realm and find this altar. But they couldn't find it. Now I've found it. If I go out, I can't tell others that I just came to chat with you for a while, can I? Why don't you take a look and help me improve my strength? For example, how about you help me improve my strength to the half-king realm? The curtain of flames replied, F***ck off. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Han Fei wasn't annoyed and shrugged. Okay then. But, Senior God of War, have all the gods really fallen? Why did everyone go to the east? What's in the east? Are we still going to go east in the future? Before Han Fei finished speaking, the curtain of flames wrote, Stop. Don't come to the east unless you become an emperor. Otherwise you will die. It's none of your business. Han Fei was shocked. Is it so dangerous? It seems that I have to be more careful in the future. I'd better stay in the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven first. Then, I'll deal with the matters of the 36 mysterious heavens and the mermaids before thinking about those trivial things. Han Fei thought again, I have an auspicious divination. Why don't I get any benefits? Han Fei said again, Senior God of War. Well, it's fine if you don't help me improve my strength. However, since you appear once every 100,000 years, at least leave me some benefits. I have to save the beasts, the humans, the heavenly talents, the insect clan, and the demonic plant clan all by myself. I'm very tired. It's very stressful. Han Fei finally had the chance to chat with the legendary God of War. Wouldn't it be a long chat? Anyway, I have to get some benefits, right? Perhaps the God of War felt that what Han Fei said might really make a little bit of sense. The curtain of flames suddenly surged up and madly enveloped Han Fei. At that moment, Han Fei's body stiffened, and he seemed to see thousands of pictures in his mind in an instant. However, all the power that he had once studied, researched, and comprehended was rapidly being absorbed by him. When these completely disappeared, Han Fei stood on the altar like an old monk in meditation, motionless. Under the altar, the 1,000 corpses kept a finger pressed between their eyebrows, leaned forward, and raised their necks, as if they were worshipping Han Fei. And in Han Fei's mind, a sentence seemed to appear. Darkness is coming, ominous shrouds, the Emperor's road has no return, and all races will be silent. Go find the way, the 3rd chapter. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1548. Outside the 10,000 beast graveyard. There were only 100 breaths of time left in the 2-hour time limit. Too many people had gone in before, and they had all come out. Nyo Dali, Crocodile Tai, Ma Qilin, and the others were already waiting outside. At this moment, these people's eyes were all fixed on the cliff. Ma Qilin said, Oh no, did Brother Nyo forget the time? Crocodile Tai asked, or did Brother Nyo find an opportunity here? Nyo Dali had found Old Sheep at this moment. Bull Demon King hasn't come out yet. Is there something wrong? Old Sheep shook his head slightly. What can go wrong? At most, they can only stay in there for 5 years. Who would be short of these 5 years? Elephant Taunton also said, Of course he won't forget the time. However, he didn't choose to come out. Either something happened to him or he wants to spend 5 years to study some conjectures. 5 years is actually not a long time. These venerables were not very worried about Han Fei not coming out. In fact, after they became venerables, many people chose to stay inside for 5 years when they entered this place. After all, those who could become venerables were talented and thought they might become the favorite of God. If by any chance he came across a great opportunity or something, he would have made a huge profit in just 5 years' time. When Han Fei woke up from the chaos, he felt as if he had experienced an epiphany. It seemed that he had gained countless combat experience. At this moment, he had pretty much forgotten all the techniques he had learned. However, they had become an almost instinctive reaction of his. However, Han Fei didn't feel happy because of this understanding. At this moment, his face was quite solemn. The God of War's last words seemed to be full of helplessness. What could a dignified, venerable emperor feel so helpless in the face of? Darkness? Ominous? What the hell are those things? Huh! Han Fei was suddenly stunned. He saw that on this grassland, there were faint blue soul particles floating everywhere. Damn it! Suddenly, Han Fei's face was filled with a bright smile. It seemed that the old God of War did leave something for him. He actually made a large number of ownerless souls on the grassland. Wait! Han Fei keenly sensed that something was wrong and roared, Fuse! When the yin-yang divine eyes appeared, Han Fei looked at the world again and saw that there seemed to be terrifying energy in the void. That feeling was actually the chaotic energy? When Han Fei tasted it carefully, his face changed greatly, and he shouted angrily, Old Yuan, stop! If you dare to absorb another strand of chaotic energy, don't blame me for falling out with you. The old tortoise said unhurriedly, Be reasonable. You won't be able to absorb this much primal chaos energy. Han Fei snorted. Even if you can't finish it, it's still mine. You want to suck it? Then wait until I'm done. Han Fei secretly activated the demon purification pot and let it shake above the old turtle's head. Immediately the old turtle shouted, "Okay, okay, okay. Suck, suck." The old turtle sighed faintly. I didn't expect this venerable sovereign to still be alive. Han Fei sat cross-legged and split out hundreds of soul fires to absorb the ownerless souls wandering around. Then, Han Fei chuckled. His realm is higher than yours. If you can survive, why can't the venerable sovereign survive? The old turtle shook his head. It's not like this. Even those who died in the battle of gods, there are still survivors then. Han Fei was puzzled. Then what? The old turtle shook his head. Nothing. By the way, in fact, these ownerless souls and chaotic energy were not given to you by the god of war, but the ownerless souls and chaotic energy contained in the 10,000 beast graveyard itself. Han Fei was puzzled. If there are ownerless souls here, I believe it. But where did so much pure energy come from? As a spirit gatherer, Han Fei keenly discovered that the spiritual energy here contained more power of the Great Path. However, even though Han Fei knew that he had to slowly refine and absorb the chaotic energy, he didn't want to give it to the old turtle. Even so, he didn't want to give all the chaotic energy to the old turtle. The ownerless souls were devoured and assimilated very quickly. In less than a day, Han Fei had swallowed nearly 30,000 ownerless souls. However, his soul power seemed to have reached the limit. However, when Han Fei looked at his personal information, he was stunned. In his eyes, information popped up. Owner Han Fei level greater than 83, peak level venerable, chaotic energy 6 spiritual power 999, 999, 9999 Taoist heart limit. 85 perception range greater than 36,000 kilometers, power greater than 4,001 waves, first spiritual heritage unknown, second spiritual heritage unknown, first spiritual beast. Twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 73, second spiritual beast emperor sparrow, level 39, main art heaven stealing technique, level 6 avoid fishing, venerable level, divine quality. When he saw this information, Han Fei himself was dumbfounded. It was not until a long time later that Han Fei realized that the limits of his soul power and strength had been broken. God of War. Han Fei was suddenly enlightened. When he woke up just now, he felt that he had understood a lot of things. At this moment, when Han Fei reviewed them one by one, he was surprised to find that everything he had learned in his life had reached the point of returning to nature. This was a very wonderful feeling. Without even thinking about it, Han Fei knew how to move every muscle in his body, how to arrange every bit of spiritual energy. What should it look like to breathe in and out? Han Fei immediately drew out a wisp of his essence blood. At this time, instead of decomposing the spiritual energy, he began to decompose the blood. Seeing this, the old turtle couldn't help but ask, "What are you doing?" Han Fei said, "Old Yuan, if I say that I feel that every drop of my essence blood seems to contain something similar to a Taoist aura, would you believe me?" The old turtle pondered for a long time. "That's not a Taoist aura." Han Fei's eyes lit up. "Then what is it?" The old turtle explained, "It's a bloodline talent. Something that can be passed on by bloodline is generally when a person uses a certain power to the extreme, this power or technique will be reflected and stored in the bloodline. If there are children, then the children can inherit it, or it can be passed on through generations. However, the requirement for forming a bloodline talent is very high, that is, your understanding of a certain great technique has reached the extreme. It can be said that this kind of technique has already become a part of your body." Han Fei wondered, like, is it the combat skill inheritance of a spiritual beast or contractual spiritual beast? The old turtle explained, "It's not the same. That's a racial inheritance and it's in their bloodline. Of course, that's also because their first-generation ancestor comprehended some peak power, so the descendants can inherit it. If there are no powerful ancestors, there will be no powerful racial inheritance. Han Fei thought to himself, isn't it just genetic code? It was as if everything he had grasped had already been compiled into his gene pool. The old turtle continued, human beings are different. The human race is too large. Besides, after countless years, there are too many mysterious inheritances contained in the bloodline. However, the possibility of successfully inheriting them is too small. In fact, it is precisely because of such inheritances that some people can be talented, and some people have extraordinary spiritual heritages. However, because the human race is too large, the inheritances are also different. Some powerful human masters often pursue to create their own unique bloodline. In this way, when their bloodline is purified, their bloodline will also have the characteristics of inheritance. After listening to the old turtle's explanation, Han Fei asked again, what are the benefits of bloodline purification? The old turtle said, it's hard to say the specific benefits. In short, some people who pursue the extreme will constantly purify their bloodline. In this way, not to mention the problem of inheritance, at least everything they have learned and thought can be integrated. In terms of combat power, it will also be improved. In fact, the main benefit of doing this is to polish their foundation. As for the inheritance, it's actually incidental. Polishing the foundation? Han Fei didn't know that polishing the foundation could also be done in this way. The old turtle said, I know you must have had an epiphany just now. Otherwise, you wouldn't have asked such a question. From an ordinary person to the present, every stage you have experienced can't be broken through in the most perfect state. Even if you think it's perfect, there are still some flaws in it. Therefore, the god of war probably reflected everything you have experienced into your soul, so that you can integrate it, make up for the past shortcomings, and polish your foundation in this way. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. So, there is a problem with my essence blood, and my bloodline has become purer? The old turtle grunted. Not pure enough. When you can completely digest the essence blood of the god of war, you will be truly pure. Hearing the old turtle's explanation, Han Fei immediately understood why the upper limit of his soul power soared to 9,999 points. It seemed that the god of war helped him polish his foundation in his own way. However, why was it that his spirit power had increased so much, but his own strength had only increased by a little? Han Fei looked at the words Taoist heart limit, thought for a while, and continued to ask, Old Yuan, is there a limit to one's Taoist heart? Of course. The old turtle said, the Taoist heart usually determines the space for a person's growth, which is the growth range of the Great Path. A person whose Taoist heart is not sound enough will have a limit. As long as he doesn't comprehend his real Tao, his Taoist heart will have a limit. In any case, he can't surpass this limit. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Theoretically, if he knew the direction of the Great Path and had a firm Taoist heart, there should be no limit to his soul power. However, now there was a limit for him. It seemed that he had to comprehend the Great Path. After thinking for a while, Han Fei keenly realized that the old turtle was talking about the growth range of the Great Path space. What does that mean? Han Fei asked, Old Yuan, does the Great Path have a range? The old turtle said, You will know this when you expand your sea. If I have to tell you now, I can only say that everyone has their own sea, called the origin sea. The origin sea provides you with power, and the size of the origin sea is the range of your Great Path. Such an explanation is useless, because you won't understand it until you reach that step. Han Fei snorted. That's not going to work. Now, his Taoist heart seemed to have begun to limit his growth. It seemed that he should really study the so-called Taoist heart. Chapter 1549. Han Fei couldn't figure it out in a short time. However, to Han Fei's relief, his soul power had reached the highest level in history. He was only one step away from 100,000 points. However, Han Fei also knew that he had unearthed the limit of his Taoist heart in advance. It wouldn't be easy for him to continue to grow in the future. Even so, Han Fei didn't panic at all. After all, having a limit was better than not being able to improve at all, right? The only problem he was facing now was to break through this limit. In this way, his goal was clearer. Han Fei glanced at his perception range again. It was definitely not small. Jinger once told him that when she reached her peak, her perception range was only 20,000 kilometers, and her premonition range was 50,000 kilometers. This at least proved one thing: the power of his divine soul was definitely not low. Of course, the 20,000 kilometers that Jinger said was when she just reached her peak. After days and nights of cultivation and visualization, this number should continue to increase. At this time, his perception range had already exceeded that of most peak-level venerables. After all, not everyone could be as talented as Jinger. It took Han Fei a day to collect the ownerless souls here. Han Fei was still thinking, should I go out now? The ownerless souls were easy to absorb, but the absorption of the chaotic energy was not a matter of a day. Forget it. The meat in my mouth can't fly away. Grandpa War God has finally given me some benefits. I can't waste them in vain. Anyway, I have the nautical panorama, so I should be able to go out. Han Fei immediately made a decision. He opened his mouth and used the swallowing technique to filter out a large amount of void impurities and absorb a large amount of pure energy into his body. At the same time, Han Fei stretched out his hand and waved, and spiritual energy from all directions gathered. Han Fei stepped on the ground, and with a series of bangs, small spirit-gathering arrays appeared one after another. Immediately afterward, the spirit-gathering arrays became more and more strange, and Han Fei used the Taoist patterns that he had just learned. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei was wrapped into a large cocoon of spiritual energy. This was the first time that Han Fei had tried to absorb the chaotic energy. Han Fei directly sent a large amount of power with chaotic energy into Forge the Universe. It only took him half a day to engrave a super spirit gathering array around the altar where Han Fei was with Taoist patterns. Spiritual energy surged from all directions, forming many vortexes of spiritual energy. It only took Han Fei 3 days to absorb all the spiritual energy in the 10,000 beast graveyard. The amount of spiritual energy here was limited. It was exactly because of the limited spiritual energy that the power of the Great Path was fused into, so Han Fei clearly felt that there was something wrong with the spiritual energy here. 3 days later, Han Fei removed the spirit gathering array and entered Forge the Universe. At this moment, all the spiritual plants in Forge the Universe were about to grow into demons. Take the garlic, for example. Those who didn't know might think it was some kind of watermelon. Since the flow of time in Forge the Universe changed, Little Black and Little White had basically never been to the Soul Sea and had been living in Forge the Universe. In order to provide for them to live, Han Fei deliberately dug a big river here and let them roam freely in it. At this moment, it wasn't just Han Fei who was absorbing the spiritual energy. Little Black, Little White, Little Fatty, Little Gold, and the Heavenly Hound were all here. Of course, the Emperor Sparrow was also here. However, the Emperor Sparrow was too arrogant. Whether it was the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, Little Fatty, or the Heavenly Hound, none of them wanted to stay with the Emperor Sparrow. And the Emperor Sparrow habitually stayed in 3 places. One was the Spirit Awakening Fluid Pool that Han Fei specially created for it, and the other was where Han Fei stored his food. However, 1/5 of the food had already been eaten. It could be seen that the Emperor Sparrow's appetite was even as bottomless as Little Black's. There was another place, which was Little Black's head. The Emperor Sparrow and Little Black were quite close. It was often Little Black who swam in the water and the Emperor Sparrow stood on Little Black's head. At this moment, the Emperor Sparrow was already level 39, which was all because of the food it ate. The problem was that the Emperor Sparrow hadn't shown any special combat skills yet. It still only had the Eye of Disaster. At this moment, Han Fei came in and found that everyone, including the Emperor Sparrow, was devouring and refining the energy between heaven and earth. Han Fei had mixed feelings. It seemed that it was good to have more secret realms like this. If he cultivated at home all day, how could he get these benefits? Han Fei said to Little White, "Daughter, in the next year, let's try our best to produce chaotic energy." Bo. Han Fei saw Little White turn over and face the water, and then Little White said, "Dad, can you not vomit? It's too tiring to vomit." The old turtle also said, "Han Fei boy, your spiritual beast really shouldn't keep creating chaotic energy at this time. This is meaningless to its growth. Since it can spit out chaotic energy, why don't you let it become a venerable first? At that time, the effect may be much better than now. If it continues to vomit like this, it will be completely deprived of its growth space." Han Fei's eyelids twitched. "Ow. Little White, be a good boy. Then let's not vomit." Han Fei sighed gloomily in his heart. Even the obedient Little White had begun to refute him. It seemed that the operation of continuously spitting out chaotic energy was indeed not very humane. Han Fei just liked Little White's high efficiency. It could spit out 12 strands a year. 1 year in the outside world was equivalent to 8 years in Forge the Universe, so it could spit out 96 strands. At this speed, it would only take him a year to complete the time acceleration plan of Forge the Universe. However, now it seemed that he could only rely on himself. Under Han Fei's feet, a spirit-gathering array appeared again. When his body was wrapped in a large cocoon of spiritual energy again, Han Fei began to disassemble the spiritual energy on a large scale. Because the degree of his disassembly had reached 77%. When the amount of spiritual energy increased, the power of Tao would also increase. It only took Han Fei 3 hours to feel the aura of chaotic energy in the spiritual energy. However, to separate it from the spiritual energy? This would take time. 3 hours later, Han Fei only felt that his head was dizzy. Concentrating on disassembling the spiritual qi and absorbing the primal qi was not an easy task. 3 hours was the limit of Han Fei's daily work. At this time, Han Fei felt a little tired and needed to rest and recover. Han Fei was also anxious. The importance of time to him was self-evident. However, in any case, the effect still came first. Day after day, Han Fei didn't absorb the chaotic energy for a long time, only 3 hours a day at most. Han Fei thought, "I can't do nothing for the rest of the time, can I?" So, in the remaining time, Han Fei began to fuse the extra 10,000 points of soul power into the golden body. Originally, Han Fei wanted to put them on the puppets. However, he didn't need those puppets now, so it would be a waste to put them on them. The process of smelting the golden body was still very painful. Every day, including the Emperor Sparrow, they all looked at Han Fei curiously, yelling and watching him rolling on the ground. These guys, hearing Han Fei's yells, were a little horrified. They thought to themselves, "What is this stupid master doing? Why does he have to torture me?" Half a year later, when Han Fei's strength reached 4,401 waves, the soul power was completely used up, and Han Fei was about 1/10 of the way away from getting the first wisp of chaotic energy. Without the extra soul power, Han Fei could only practice the Great Desolate Body Art. Coincidentally, the Great Desolate Body Art could forcibly swallow demonic spiritual energy, savage evil qi, poison barriers, and the energy containing chaotic energy in smelting heaven, transforming it into the power to nourish the body. So, after 20 days, through his own efforts, Han Fei obtained the first wisp of chaotic energy from the spiritual energy. When Han Fei saw this wisp of chaotic energy, he was overjoyed. "It's too difficult. This thing was too difficult to pull out. Old Yuan, how is my speed? Can I do it?" The old turtle said unhurriedly, "Do you know how rich the spiritual qi and the primal chaos qi here are? A person who is really proficient in absorbing chaotic energy can absorb 1 wisp in 3 or even 2 months at most in such an environment." Han Fei grinned. "Haha. This is my first time after all. Take it slow and it will be faster. A year later, Han Fei's strength reached 4,486 waves, and it took him more than 5 months to absorb the second wisp of chaotic energy. 2 years later, Han Fei's strength reached 4,564 waves. In this year, he absorbed 3 wisps of soul chaotic energy. 8 years later, outside, the Great Rift Gorge was still barbecuing every day as if it couldn't eat enough. The old sheep habitually stood on the top of the cliff on the other side of the Great Rift Gorge. However, it was different from before in the past. The old sheep didn't eat barbecue or anything else. Now the old sheep was eating demonic plants. These were all hunted from the Forest of Horrors, which was very suitable for the old sheep's appetite. On this day, the old sheep was chewing demonic plants while waiting. He muttered to himself as if no one could hear him, "Sure enough, I knew he would get what's there." Ho! At this moment, Han Fei's body was shining with golden light. Han Fei pointed a finger at the ground and stood upside down for God knows how long. There was a rumbling sound in Han Fei's body, like thunder. Crack, with a crisp cracking sound, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp and the others all looked over. Han Fei's aura surged, and the surrounding spiritual energy and energy surged towards Han Fei. 2 hours later, when he exhaled a wisp of turbid air, Han Fei smiled. He was right. When he reached the peak level Junior Venerable, Han Fei felt strange and felt that it was too easy to become a Junior Venerable. Now that he had made breakthroughs in all aspects and reached the limit again, Han Fei had a premonition of the real opportunity to make a breakthrough. Owner Han Fei level greater than 84, Intermediate Venerable, Chaotic Gas 36 Spiritual Power 99999/99999 Limit of Taoist Heart, Perception Range greater than 36,000 kilometers, Power greater than 5,402 waves, First Spiritual Heritage Unknown, Second Spiritual Heritage Unknown, First Spiritual Beast, Twin Yin-Yang Spirit Swallowing Fish Level 73, Second Spiritual Beast Emperor Sparrow Level 49, Main Art Void Fishing Level 6. Sky Stealing Technique Venerable Level Divine Quality. When he saw this information, Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. This is the strength I should have. If I fight against most advanced venerables with this strength, I can easily win. Of course, it's not enough now. According to Han Fei's estimation, the power limit of an advanced venerable should be about 6,000 waves. And it's a very special kind of advanced venerable. The power limit of an ordinary advanced venerable may only be about 5,000 waves. However, Han Fei didn't panic at all. After all, he had just made a breakthrough. If he used the power of hope at this time, his strength would probably soar again. However, Han Fei didn't plan to use the power of hope to improve his strength anymore. After all, it was more appropriate to use the power of hope to improve the disassembly rate of spiritual energy. In the past 8 years, starting from the 3rd year, Han Fei could only absorb 4 wisps of chaotic gas every year. In the 8th year, Han Fei's disassembly rate of spiritual energy made a breakthrough and increased by 1%. As a result, Han Fei could absorb 5 wisps of chaotic gas. It could be seen that as the disassembly rate of spiritual energy increased, the absorption of chaotic gas would only become faster and faster. Even so, in the words of the old turtle, he could absorb so fast because the god of war absorbed the remaining chaotic gas of the dead creatures in this 10,000 beast graveyard. The chaotic gas here was more than 10 times that of the outside world. Han Fei was shocked. Under normal circumstances, it would take him more than 80 years to absorb these 30 wisps of chaotic gas. Just thinking about it made Han Fei shudder. It seemed that in order to save time, he had to find a way to continue to improve the disassembly rate of spiritual energy.